said stay distracted, stay divided, stay tired. Well, people waking up now. Yeah, something's shifting.
Another story hit the timeline, another power play hidden in the fine lines. Everybody screaming, nobody hearing truth. Young souls losing faith in the booth. They politic pain while the cameras flash. Turn communities into hashtags. Everybody divided by design. Keep us fighting while they redraw lines. Too much noise, too much smoke in the air. Too many leaders acting like they care. But the people see the cracks now. Masks falling off, can't go back now. Nah, we see, talk that talk. And I know some days it feel hopeless. World so cold, heart so broken. What if we stop now? Who gon' stay? Who gon' fight for the next generation? They can't silence the people no more. Too much pain been buried before. Every headline opening wounds. Still we rise, still we move. Hands up high, let the truth be known. Too many hearts turn cold and stone, but the fight for tomorrow lives on. Yeah, and the people suffering strong. Truth hit harder when the lies get exposed. Whole system cracking under pressure in the cold. Everybody angry, everybody online, but rage alone won't heal the mind. We need wisdom with the passion too. Can't become the thing we accusing them to do. Mirror conversations hurt the soul sometimes, but accountability the hardest kind. See the cycle repeat every year. Fear is so faster than hope round here, but I still believe in people waking up, even when the road get rough. Wake up, stay sharp, hold the line. This ain't left or right. It's about truth or lies. It's about people trying to survive. No fear, no fear, no fear, no fear. We still standing, still speaking, still fighting on tomorrow. They can't silence the people no more. We done seen what the silence for. Every storm made us stronger now. Still we here and we louder now. Hands up high, let the whole world know. Truth gon' live when the lights get low. And the fight for tomorrow lives on. So the people keep singing strong. Rise up, stand tall, stand tall. We still here, the people won't fall. We still here, the people won't fall. History watching. What side you gonna stand on?
They said Stay distracted. Stay divided. Stay tired. Well, people waking up now. Yeah. Something's shifting.
Rise up. Rise up. They can't silence the people no more. Too much pain been buried before. Every headline opening wounds. Still we rise, still we move. Hands up high, let the truth be known. Too many hearts turn cold as stone, but the fight for tomorrow lives on, and the people singing strong. Yeah, rise up, keep pushing. We still here.
Yeah. Every week another story hit the timeline. Another power play hidden in the fine lines. Everybody screaming, nobody hearing truth. Young souls losing faith in the booth. They politic pain while the cameras flash. Turn communities into hashtags. Everybody divided by desire. Keep us fighting while they redraw lines. Too much noise, too much smoke in the air. Too many leaders acting like they care. But the people see the cracks now. Masks falling off, can't go back now. Nah, we see, talk that talk.
And I know
Some days it feel hopeless. World so cold. Heart so broken. But if we stop now, who gon' stay? Who gon' fight for the next generation?
they can't silence the people no more.
Too much pain been buried before. Every headline opening wounds.
Still we rise, still we move. Hands up high, let the truth be known.
Too many hearts turn cold as stone, but the fight for tomorrow lives on. Yeah, and the people suffering strong. Truth hit harder when the lies get exposed. Whole system cracking under pressure in the cold. Everybody angry, everybody online, but rage alone won't heal the mind. We need wisdom with the passion too. Can't become the thing we accusing them to do. Mirror conversations hurt the soul sometimes, but accountability the hardest kind. See the cycle repeat every year. Fear is so faster than hope round here, but I still believe in people waking up, even when the road get rough. Wake up, stay sharp, hold the line. This ain't left or right. It's about truth or lies. It's about people trying to survive.
No fear, no fear.
No fear, no fear. We still standing, still speaking, still fighting on tomorrow.
They can't silence the people no more.
We done seen what the silence for. Every storm made us stronger now. Still we here and we louder now.
Hands up high, let the whole world know.
Truth gon' live when the lights get low, and the fight for tomorrow lives on. So the people keep singing strong.
Rise up,
Stand tall, stand tall. We still here, the people won't fall. We still here, the people won't fall. History watching. What side you gonna stand on?
Hey y'all, what's up? What's up? What's up? It's your girl Golden, and we are back with another live, y'all. I hope you can hear me very well. It is about 2:09 p.m. here, Eastern Time in the United States and the Carolinas, and we are back. Happy Monday, everybody out there. We got to get back into our political swing, child, because we got some updates that we got to bring to y'all. A few serious things that's been going on, and so we will be discussing all of that today. And of course, I will have the lovely Imani here with me as co host. And we will be talking about these political updates together, y'all. So let's go ahead and get into it real quick, real quick. I like to say, if nobody has heard, yesterday was Mother's Day. So happy Mother's Day. I hope everybody had a beautiful Mother's Day and a great experience on that day with your family and your loved ones, you know. But anyway, yes, we got to get back into the seriousness of life. So we got to talk a little bit about this politics, y'all. What's going on in the government in the world right now. So basically, we are seeming to be at a breaking point. We're going to be connecting some dots between a public health crisis and a political one. We got to talk about the Hantavirus, y'all. Now, the Hantavirus apparently has now reached the United States. At first, it was just, within a cruise ship that was in, I believe, South Africa, they said, area. And that cruise ship docked, and some of the individuals who may have had the virus um, came on back home. And now, the virus is spreading around a little bit. So patients have landed in places like Omaha and Atlanta. And what we need to know, right, about the Andes variant is why the government is on high alert. So we have the rise of Confederacy. We also going to be talking about proclamations and the South meet the systemic destruction of Black voting power in Tennessee and Alabama. We also be talking about how Obama has now broken his silence. The former president sounds the alarm on the unalive of the rule law under Trump's DOJ. We'll be also talking about the DOJ cover-up, how MAGA congressmen are being shielded from federal investigations. And we'll dip into a little bit of Clarence Thomas and does the justice hate the very community he came from. There's a lot of talk around Clarence Thomas. And I can't say that word, y'all, but this is what they've been saying about him and feeling about him. And it is not just a certain group of people. Everybody's seeing it. So this is the news that they don't want to synthesize, y'all. They don't want to show you and talk about, but we're going to talk about it here. So let me go ahead and bring Imani up and introduce her so we can get started. What's going on, Imani? How you doing? And how was your Mother's Day weekend?
Right. I'm good. The funny thing is, in the UK, we have Mother's Day in March. So
Oh,
it wasn't,
okay.
yeah, yeah. So it wasn't Mother's Day weekend, but I did celebrate again. And I had a quiet weekend. How was yours?
Very good, very good. Mine was pretty good overall. There were some events that happened towards the end, but nothing too serious. But overall, my Mother's Day and spending time with my son and my mama, we had a great time.
Yeah, I did see that. And yeah, I think right at the end, well, actually, I think before we start on our politics, because I think the politics is really important and it's the real world stuff. Um,
Yeah.
I did see your live, and anybody who wants to know what happened can go and watch the live that Golden did um, and see why she did that live. But there's one thing I'd like to say with regards to that, and then we can move swiftly on to doing the politics.
Okay.
Um, I think all of us, all of us on these platforms, need to seriously reflect on the environments that we choose to engage in. And
Yeah.
because in what happened with you and what happened, and this is not a dig at you, this is talking about everybody, reviewing where they sit and who they sit with. Because why would anybody of color willingly, and I can understand it was sprung on you, sit on a panel or argue alongside someone who's um, used racial slurs against Black people, minimized the history of slavery, and dismissed conversations around reparations, especially as that person is the mother of a biracial child. Those statements carry even more weight and contradiction. And at some point, we really have to ask ourselves whether we're entering spaces for meaningful dialogue or simply participating in toxic cycles of outrage, conflict, and emotional chaos. Because there's a difference between disagreement and placing yourself in environments that are rooted in disrespect. They're rooted in provocation. They're rooted in hostility and humiliation. And when people are exposing themselves to these spaces, it's important to examine what emotional need is being fulfilled by anyone who sits around people like this. You know, are we looking for, and I'm saying we as in we, the collective who do this, are we looking for validation? Are we looking for attention? Are we, does the adrenaline of conflict get us going? Um, do we need to be heard? Is there a need to win? And if we're winning, what are we winning? You know, or has chaos like simply become so normalized that peaceful spaces feel unfamiliar? Because that's the question I would ask. I really would ask. And there's another thing that happened whilst you were in that space. I want to give a shout out to Goody, because Goodytopia, um, she's one of the best readers on this platform, and she's funny. And she read one of the people that was on the platform with you, not the one who's used the racial slurs, about being disrespected on a day like Mother's Day. I would recommend that people go and listen to her latest live, because it adds humor to some serious issues about the disrespect that we tolerate. And also, Goody's music, apart from yours, is really, really good. It's a channel I think that's underrated. And I think, you know, go there, like, share, and subscribe, because she does a good read. And I did laugh a lot when I heard her. But I mean, that's all I wanted to say, really, because we're going to do some stuff anyway on some of the stuff that goes on in the world and in this world about serious topics like racism. But that was just one of my observations. And it's an observation that all of us should look at, about where we sit, whose house we sit in, and who we sit next to. And the people that tolerate that are people of color, that tolerate that person's behavior. Why? Why is, you know, is there some, you know, is there a rise in self-hate? You know, what are we doing? What are we doing here? Because most of those people in real life would be just ignored. On this platform, they're given a platform to you know, speak and talk in ways they couldn't do on the outside world. And that's really all I have to say. But I think, you know, if people want to know what went on, because I don't want to take this away from the politics, people should go and watch Golden's live and see what she was talking about. And that's it for me, really.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And you know what? I love listening to people who come with wisdom. And that's typically what you do. Mama does as well. And sometimes it's like you really do have to think about these things. You know, what is it about you that makes you gravitate to these types of places and spaces, you know? And so I think that is something that was really important for you to say, because that comes with a lot of self-reflection, right? And accountability. We have to take accountability for the choices we make, the places we go, and the individuals and the spaces that we desire to be in or we find ourselves in, right? It starts there. And then you can find, if you're making different choices and not going to those places or spaces and being around those individuals, then sometimes these type of things don't happen. Doesn't mean that those individuals aren't going to be the way they are and still think and feel the way they feel. They'll do it. You just don't have to bear witness to it or undergo, you know, any experiences with that if you just don't go around. And I get that, and it makes perfect sense. It's unfortunate that on this platform now it has become that way, because I thought we could just all go around and support and show love to everybody, like one another. And that's all I've ever tried to do, or I thought I was doing, as far as the places and the spaces I go. And I don't go to all of them. I go to some. I don't go to all. But, you know, maybe we can shift around into, you know, where it is that we go and where we decide to spend time, because you can have some really great experiences in places you go, and you can have some really ungreat experiences in places you go. So we have to take the accountability for our choices and what we decide to do. But yes, like you said, as we move further within the content, we will be talking a lot on racism. I do have a video today, though, honestly, that's within political sector as well, but also is going to dive into a little bit of exactly what we're talking about, because it's not like we're just pulling these things out of, you know, thin air as far as this, you know, uptick and this like overbearing energy of racistness and racism that we are seeing in multiple places, right? We're seeing it in our political sector, in our government. We're seeing it here on the YouTube platform. We're seeing it in our everyday lives when we just may go to the grocery store. And it definitely has elevated, and it has gained some traction and some power, right? And, you know, it's something that people need to ask themselves. Is it something that we feel as though we need to combat against, or do we just pretend like it's not happening and don't speak on it at all? But y'all know how I get, very winded. So I'm not going to say too much more about that. We're going to go ahead and dive into the political stuff, y'all. There's a few great topics here that we'll be talking about. And at the end, we'll leave with a little bit of comedy from one of our faves that does an excellent job in breaking down politics, combining it with comedy, combining it with activism, does it amazingly so well and blends it up so well. So we'll save that for the end. But the first video we're going to get into, y'all, we're going to hear about just some U.S. and world politics from Democracy Now!, another channel that we frequently watch and enjoy over here. So let me go ahead and pull that up, and we will watch through that together and see some of the updates that are going on, not just here in my country in the U.S., but also worldwide. Imani?
Yeah, yeah, if you just continue with that, and we'll pause it at about 5 minutes and have a chat, and then pause it again after that. That'll be great. Did you hear me? Hello?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I'm getting the video up. I can hear you. Yeah, that sounds good. That's what I'm going to do. We'll pause it at 5-minute time, and then we'll do our commentary and keep going like that. I think it's only going to be about a total of 15 minutes, so we can break it up into like 5-minute intervals and do our commentary in between each 5 minutes.
Okay, that's
So
good.
let me put this up on the stage here. Again, this is Democracy Now! They cover a lot of important things that are happening, not just in the United States, which is the country I live in, but worldwide in other countries as well. And it's great for us to be updated on those things. So let's go ahead and get this pulled up real quick, y'all. Let me get everything set up. We will watch together, and then we'll meet y'all in the chat. Oh, shoot. Okay, let's do it. All right, let me fix one thing, y'all. All right, give me just a sec. But anyway, yeah. So tell me a little bit more about Mother's Day in the UK while I'm getting this set up. So you said y'all have Mother's Day in March.
Yeah, Mother's Day normally falls about the third Sunday in March. Yeah, I think we both, but I think in the US and the UK,
Okay.
Father's Day's in June.
Wow. Okay. So you get a double dose, girl. A double dose, which is deserving. I think it is very deserving. If you are a mother, child, you need as much celebration as possible because it's really not an easy job at all. But that's cool. So you celebrate in March, and then you also celebrate here in May as well.
Well, I do. I don't
But
know about anybody else, but I do. I celebrate
yeah,
Mother's Day every day.
there we go. Every day is Mother's Day. But yeah, let's go ahead and get to the video. I got it fixed. Y'all got it pulled up the proper way. So let me go ahead and get this playing for us so we can dig right into it. We'll meet y'all in the chat. Be right back.
DemocracyNow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. President Trump blasted Iran's response to the U.S.'s 14-point ceasefire proposal, calling it, quote, totally unacceptable. Iran's foreign ministry says the U.S. continues to have, quote, unreasonable demands, unquote, and that Iran's response to the U.S. proposal, quote, was not excessive, unquote. This comes as Iran's economy is reeling from the impact of U.S.-Israeli strikes. An Iranian government official estimated the war has caused the loss of 1 million jobs, and comments reported Iranian state media. On April 25th, Iranian job resumes submitted in a single day, which is 50% higher than the previous record, according to the news site Asr Iran, cited by the New York Times. According to the U.S.-based human rights activist news agency, over 3,600 people have been killed in Iran by U.S.-Israeli strikes, among them 254 children. Meanwhile, the Pentagon confirms 13 U.S. service members have been killed and 415 wounded in the U.S.-Israeli war in Iran. On Sunday, Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu insisted in an interview with CBS News' 60 Minutes that the Iran war isn't over because nuclear material remains in Iran.
It's not over because there's still nuclear material, enriched uranium, that has to be taken out of Iran. There's still enrichment sites that have to be dismantled. There are still proxies that Iran supports. There are ballistic missiles that they still want to produce. Now, we've degraded a lot of it, but all of that is still there, and there's work to be done.
Nobel Peace Laureate Narges Mohammadi has been transferred to a hospital in Tehran more than a week after collapsing in prison. In a statement, her foundation said, quote, "We must ensure she never returns to prison to face the 18 years remaining on her sentence. Now is the time to demand her unconditional freedom and the dismissal of all charges," unquote. Over the weekend, The Guardian published an excerpt of her memoir, Smuggled Out of Prison, in which Mohammadi wrote, quote, "Authoritarian regimes do not always need an executioner's rope. Sometimes they simply wait for the human body to fail and then make sure no help arrives, or they create conditions in which death can come easily, helping it along by standing in the way of life-saving care," unquote. Mohammadi has been arrested 13 times, sentenced to a cumulative 31 years in prison and 154 lashes. She received the Nobel Peace Prize in 2023 for her advocacy against torture and the death penalty in Iran. The U.S. says it'll facilitate a new round of talks between Israel and Lebanon at the State Department's Washington headquarters Thursday and Friday. Israel and Lebanon reached a temporary ceasefire agreement in mid-April, but Israel continues to launch deadly attacks inside Lebanon. The Lebanese Health Ministry said Sunday Israeli attacks over just 24 hours killed 51 people, including 2 medical workers. Since March 2nd, Israeli strikes have killed nearly 3,000 people across Lebanon. 1.2 million people have been displaced. On Sunday, hundreds of people gathered to mourn at least 8 members of a displaced Lebanese family who were killed when an Israeli airstrike hit the building they were sheltering in. Among the dead was a 6-month-old infant. This is Abu Salah, who attended the funeral.
What would we say? What would we say about the massacres committed against those innocent people, those civilians, those pure believers who are holding on to the land? My mother-in-law, may God bless her soul, was holding on to the land, and her children were holding on to the land.
In Gaza, Israeli strikes killed at least 3 Palestinians, including the head of the criminal police force in Khan Yunis, Wassam Abdelhadi, and his aide. A separate strike killed 1 person and wounded 2 others in the Magasi refugee camp in central Gaza. Israel has conducted near daily attacks since the U.S. brokered so-called ceasefire took effect last October. At least 850 Palestinians have been killed since then. This is Ali Musa Dababesh, who attended the funeral of the policeman.
Although the ceasefire came into effect several months ago, the occupation continues to target police officers in order to cause chaos amongst the people of the same nation. The occupation aims to create chaos and confusion within the Gaza Strip. This is its sole objective.
Israel's deported 2 activists who were abducted from a Gaza-bound humanitarian aid flotilla that was violently intercepted by Israeli forces in international waters late last month. Spanish national Saif Abukeshek and the Brazilian Thiago Avila were among 175 activists forced off their humanitarian aid ships at gunpoint during Israel's raid on the global Samud flotilla. Both men faced severe physical abuse, they said, while in Israeli custody, which their legal team said amounted to torture. This is Saif Abukeshek speaking after his deportation to Greece.
I left behind me thousands of Palestinian prisoners, children, women, and men. I'm sure that the treatment I face is not compared to the suffering they are going through. The testimonies we hear of their torture, of their violation on daily basis. We have to continue mobilizing. We cannot forget the Palestinian prisoners.
In the occupied West Bank, thousands of runners competed in the 10th edition of the Palestine International Marathon on Friday, following a 2-year hiatus due to Israel's assault on the Gaza Strip. Runners gathered outside the Church of the Nativity in central Bethlehem for the start of the race, while a parallel 5-kilometer race was held in central Gaza. Among those participating were amputees who lost limbs to Israeli bombs and bullets. A BBC-funded documentary titled Gaza.
All right, so we'll go ahead and take a quick pause right there. But that's just some updates as far as what's going on that we've heard so far in the video, and there'll be a few additional updates as well. All of this is very disheartening to me because I never fully understand and can accept the fact that we have wars. I get it, it comes down to religion, money, territory, all of those type of things, right? I hate it. I hate to see it because innocent lives, people not even having a chance to grow up, children, babies, losing their lives at these wars, it just doesn't make any sense to me. And to fight over things that are, in my personal opinion, materialistic, like even land, right? I get people are fighting for religion. Come on. Can we not just agree to disagree? You just don't see it the way I see it. Do we have to take each other out because we don't have the same beliefs? I know it goes a lot deeper than that, but, I'll just try to simplify it. What are your thoughts, Imani?
We'll start with what they were talking about the ceasefire plans. Washington saying it's unacceptable, Iran saying it's unreasonable. So we're nowhere closer to an agreement on the ceasefire plan. The second thing that's really, key is that Iran says that 1 million jobs have gone in Iran since the start of the war. And we're talking about a war that's, I don't even think it's 90 days old. It may be approaching that. War, and what that tells you is war just doesn't kill people. It kills economies as well, which also kills people because People will suffer because of prices, the rising prices, the supply chains. The second thing is, 3,600 civilians have died, and 254 of them were children. And then you have the loss to the US military, and I think it was 14 US military have died, and there's about 416 injured. These are the casualties that nobody thinks about or speaks about when we're hearing all this high top level discussion. And also Netanyahu, who personally I think, wants this to continue. And judging by his speak, he's not planning for it to be over anytime soon. So, if this is what we call de-escalation, imagine the alternative. The last thing is, thoughts and prayers go out to the family of Narges Mohammadi, who is the Peace Prize winner, who was ill in prison, and she fought for many things, such as, she was against the death penalty, and she talks about tyrannical rule. A lot of us are facing this right now. And then, the fact that Lebanon, the so-called ceasefire on paper, which results in airstrikes in practice, which is a joke. And the other thing was the aid vessels that were seized, and the civilians that are trying to bring aid to people in Gaza were say they were tortured, and saying if that's how they were treated, how are Palestinian prisoners being treated? But one of the and the other thing that was one of the uplifting things about this whole report, which was very, very sad and disturbing, was that the Palestinians that are still running the marathons with amputated limbs, I mean, you don't get more resilience than that. And I think that was, an uplifting part of that whole terrible report, that people who have amputees running a marathon, even in the situation that they are facing. I think that's something we should all look at, whilst we're moaning about all these silly little things that are going on this platform and elsewhere when people are calling us
Right.
names. There's people still running a marathon in a war zone. I think that's brilliant.
Right.
And that's really all I've got to say about that first part.
No, that's amazing that you really honed into that. And that's one of the things that I think is very important for us to continue to do, is no matter what is happening, no matter what we're experiencing, we're going through, there is pieces of light and hope that you can pull from, uplifting things that people still have because of their level of resilience when they're going through difficult times. And we can hone into those things to keep people a little bit more positive and uplifted, instead of just always, because we have to talk about the detriment, but outside of the detriment, there are people that are still showing us that no matter how hard things get, and no matter how bad things can be, we still can continue to push forward and push on. I wanted to just do a little quick rundown before we start the rest of the video, since we're here on the topic of wars, and just go through a little bit of each war that is actually currently happening that maybe a lot of people don't understand. But we do have, the war that's in Iran. So since the U.S.-Israeli strikes in February 2026, the Middle East is in a state of high intensity regional war, with retaliatory strikes affecting Bahrain, Qatar, and Saudi Arabia. Then we have Ukraine, now in its fourth year. The war has become a brutal slog, with constant infrastructure destruction and high civilian casualties. We also have Sudan, which is currently the world's worst humanitarian crisis, with 33 million people in need of aid and 12 million displaced. We have Pakistan and Afghanistan. A new open war broke out in February of 2026 with cross-border offenses. Then we have Myanmar, if I'm saying that right, a multi-front civil war that has displaced over 2 million people. And then we have to talk about Venezuela following Operation Absolute Resolve in early 2026. The country is in a state of extreme political and military upheaval. Now, one of the other things that I wanted to pinpoint on when it comes to these wars, right? And I think a lot of people, they feel a little bit, but they don't understand. A lot of people can look across the border, across the lake, across the pond, whatever it is you want to call it, and say that, well, that's what's going on with those people. It's not affecting me. And so I'm just really not worried about it, and I don't care enough. But let's talk about how these wars do impact the economic dinner table crisis, okay? War is not just about bullets. It is also about the cost of living. We got to talk about energy and inflation. The war in Iran has sent oil prices skyrocketing in the United States. Headline inflation is expected to hit nearly 4% this month. This means higher gas prices and heating costs for everyone. The global breadbasket. Conflict remains the number one driver of hunger. Nearly 360 million people are at risk of acute hunger, starvation, okay? When ports in Ukraine or supply chains in the Middle East are blocked, the price of grain and fertilizer goes up. Also, we got to talk about the slack economy. Economists are cutting growth forecasts globally. For the average person, this means fewer jobs, higher interest rates, and permanent state of economic anxiety. So, what about on a humanitarian level? How is that impacted? Well, we have this displacement crisis that is happening. Over 239 people worldwide are in urgent need of humanitarian protection. We are seeing mass arrivals of refugees in countries like Chad and South Sudan that are already struggling to feed their own people. Violence against women and children. Conflict-related actual violence has increased by nearly 90% in the last 2 years. In the DRC and Gaza, the statistics on children being unalived or maimed are at levels not seen since World War II. And then we have to talk about the health crisis. War destroys hospitals and clean water. Cholera outbreaks are currently surging across Chad, Sudan, and the DRC because the infrastructure to stop them has been bombed out. Impact of the psychological, the invisible scars that we don't see. This is a great conversation to have because there's a lot of psychological things that are happening to people. People are not in a good place mentally for many different reasons, and a lot of it can derive from these wars. A generational understrain. 1 in 7 adolescents worldwide now live with mental health conditions. In war zones, that number is much higher. Integrational trauma. Trauma doesn't end when the ceasefire is signed. It gets passed down from parents to children through integrational trauma, affecting how families function for decades. And the loss of familiarity. Beyond PTSD, millions are suffering from dislocation, the grief of losing their homes, their neighborhoods, and their sense of safety. So when a missile hits a refinery in Iran, a single mother, possibly here in North Carolina, where I happen to live, pays more for her groceries and in other places as well. We aren't isolated. We are all tethered to these conflicts. The price of silence. We call them forgotten wars because the media stops talking about it. But the people are still struggling. Silence is a weapon used by those in power. And the war machine versus the people. While the world spends trillions of dollars on military budgets, humanitarians are begging for just 1% of that so they can save 87 million lives. Why is it easier to fund a bomb than a bag of grain? And mental health as peace building. You can't have peace in a country if the children are too traumatized to imagine a future. We need to stop treating mental health as a luxury. and start seeing it as the foundation of survival. And I just wanted to read those notes real quick, but we'll go ahead and get back into the video, and then we'll do
That
some
was
more
really good.
commentary.
That was really informative. That was really informative, Gordon, because I don't think people see the hidden things that go on in a war. And just one thing I want to say just before you move on.
Take your time.
If you guys remember when Trump came in and Elon went into the government and was closing down certain parts of the government, one of the areas that they closed down was US aid. Now, a lot of people said there's all these billions going into foreign countries. Well, listen to this. The US aid did not only feed the poor and hungry in other places, it was used as a ground game, as a way to get information on internal things that are going on. So, for example, if they were in a war in Afghanistan, the fact that they were feeding the poor and the hungry and giving money and not just giving dollars and saying, here, get me information, they were making their lives better. That gave them loyalty to tell them what was going on internally and help them to fight wars. But of course, that's all been shut down because certain people didn't actually realize it was bigger than just feeding people outside your own economy. But that's just one of the things where they've lost their ground game as well. But anyway, let's keep going.
Okay, but no, that was really good because absolutely it is. Once all of that got shut down, this is how we see these things have probably been able to go as far as they have and get out of hand the way they are. Because if we still had some of that in place, some of these things could have possibly been prevented. And so that's an excellent point that you make. But yeah, let's go ahead and play a little bit more of the video, and then we'll pause in just another 6 minutes and do another commentary.
Doctors Under Attack won Best Current Affairs Program at the BAFTA TV Awards Sunday, despite being dropped by the network last June. Channel 4 in the UK picked it up and aired it instead. The BBC pulled the film weeks before its scheduled broadcast. In a statement, the BBC had said, quote, "We have come to the conclusion that broadcasting this material risks creating a perception of partiality," unquote. Presenter Ramita Navai and Ben DePere, the executive producer of the documentary, blasted the BBC in their acceptance speeches.
We refuse to be silenced and censored, and we thank you, and we thank Channel 4 for showing this film.
We also want to dedicate this award to Jabba Badwan and Osama al-Ashi, the two journalists on the ground who made this film for us. So I'd like a round of applause for them, please. Just a question to the BBC. Given that you dropped our film, will you drop us from the BAFTA screening later tonight? Thank you.
In the United Kingdom, the far-right populist Nigel Farage and his anti-immigrant party Reform UK made significant gains in local elections over the weekend as the Labour Party, led by Prime Minister Keir Starmer, took heavy losses. Results show Reform UK gained nearly 1,450 council seats and control of 14 councils, while the Labour Party lost nearly 1,500 councillors, leading some members of the parliament to call on Starmer to resign. The Conservative Party also suffered big losses, while the Green Party made gains, claiming hundreds of council seats and winning 2 mayoral elections. Nigel Farage is a chief architect of Brexit and an ally of President Donald Trump. He's repeatedly used racist language to attack immigrants and Muslims, while his former classmates may have accused him of racist and anti-Semitic bullying. We'll go to London after headlines for the latest on the British elections. Virginia's Supreme Court has struck down a congressional map drawn by Democrats just weeks after voters approved a statewide referendum changing the borders of Virginia's 11 congressional districts. The new map could have allowed Democrats to win an additional 4 House seats in November's midterm elections. Its defeat is a major blow to efforts by Democrats to counter redistricting by Republicans in other states, including Florida, Missouri, North Carolina, Tennessee, and Texas. Meanwhile, officials in Alabama have asked the U.S. Supreme Court for permission to throw out Alabama's congressional map, which has 2 majority black districts. Republicans are seeking to flip at least one of Alabama's 2 Democratic-controlled House seats. Alabama's emergency application came less than 2 weeks after the Supreme Court's conservative majority gutted the last remaining major provision of the Voting Rights Act in a 6-3 ruling. Internal documents obtained by the New York Times reveal the Board of Immigration Appeals, part of the Justice Department, pushed Palestinian activist Mahmoud Khalil's deportation case. Last month, the Board of Immigration Appeals ruled Khalil could soon be deported. Khalil's case was reportedly considered high priority even before the board officially received it. The decision to deport Khalil also came just 9 days after paperwork was submitted. Amaro Lopez, who was appointed to the board under President Biden and later fired under President Trump, told the New York Times, quote, "That kind of timeline is unprecedented. It's an insane turnaround, particularly for such a high-profile case on a novel legal issue," he said. At least 3 judges also reportedly recused themselves from the process. On social media, Mahmoud Khalil wrote, quote, "This story proves that the Trump administration's treatment of my case has always been corrupt and retaliatory. They put me through a sham immigration process while guaranteeing the outcome in advance," Mahmoud Khalil wrote. A Mexican couple held in an ICE jail was finally released and able to reunite with their 18-year-old son just a day before he died of cancer. Kevin Gonzalez was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer and died Sunday in Mexico. His parents, Isidoro Gonzalez Aviles and Norma Anabel Ramirez Amaya, had been arrested in April while trying to re-enter the U.S. to visit their dying son after the request for humanitarian visas was denied. On Thursday, an Arizona judge ordered the release of Kevin's parents from ICE custody. On Friday, they returned to Mexico. Hoping to reunite with their parents, Kevin Gonzalez flew to Mexico a week ago, where he had discontinued treatment. His father said, quote, "We managed to make my son's dream come true, to be with him again, to love him, to give him the love we could not give him during these months when he was not with us," unquote. The Pentagon says it's blown up another ship in the Eastern Pacific, killing 2 of its passengers and leaving 1 survivor. Once again, officials with U.S. Southern Command provided no evidence for their claims that the ship had been carrying drugs. Southcom says it notified the U.S. Coast Guard to begin search and rescue operations for the survivor. There's no word on the person's fate. Similar attacks by the Pentagon in the Caribbean and Eastern Pacific have reportedly killed 192 people. Legal experts say there are extrajudicial killings and are illegal under U.S. and international law. A CNN announcement.
All right, y'all. I just want to go ahead and say hello to V-Love. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate it. So many topics. This was, jam-packed in that one little segment there in such, a short bit of time. But I did highlight a few. I don't know if you have a few that you want to talk about, Imani. I know one of the ones that I want you to take the reins on is, of course, the reform for the UK landslide, because you're in the UK, so I'll let you take the reins on that one. Is there anything you wanted to talk about first? It was so much information there.
There was a lot of information there. Let's just talk about the first thing is Nigel Farage. Yeah.
Okay. Let's get into that.
Now, first of all, I've got to say this was not national elections. This was local elections. So it was a bit like I would compare it to your local Senate in your state.
Okay.
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 These are local county elections. And in the same way that you have the national government, where you have the national budget, you also have the local councillors, which are like the local Senate. And these elections happened on Thursday. Funny enough, just like you always have elections on a Tuesday, we always have, apart from elections that are outside of the norm, we always have our elections, national and local, on a Thursday. And Nigel Farage, they were the Brexit Party, and now they're called the Reform Party. And their biggest mantra, and it gets anybody going with a right-wing persuasion, is immigrants and immigration. And that is the main basis of most of their policies. Hence why he has such a close link to Trump and MAGA. The problem is when people become disillusioned with the national government, they always think the alternative is to vote for the people that tell them that migrants are taking all your money, asylum seekers are doing all the SA. It's the same game, different country.
Gotcha.
Unfortunately, Starmer has been a big surprise, even to me, because I think he's weak. I think he doesn't stand up to Trump. I think the other European leaders are putting him to shame. I think that he needs to, stand firm on some of this stuff, like the rest of the European
He needs
leaders.
more of a backbone. Yeah.
Sorry?
Needs more of a back.
Yeah.
Needs more of a
Yeah, and
backbone.
I think
Yeah.
there is backlash. These votes are a protest vote. They're a protest vote to tell him you need to get your house in order. There is a big, and one of the biggest things that has not helped Starmer was him appointing Mandelson to a major government post. And if anybody knows who Peter Mandelson was, he is our Epstein guy. He is the guy that was very close to Epstein. He is the guy that got sacked because he is the guy that was, I think was he the UK ambassador? I believe he's the UK ambassador. And Starmer has taken a lot of flack because the fact was they weren't just rumors. These things were known before he appointed him, and he still went on and appointed him. And that, surprisingly, compared to what's happening in the US, has been it's actually similar to why people started turning against Trump, because of his attempt to hide the Epstein files. But
We'll be getting into a
for the
little bit
moment,
of that.
yeah, but he's suffering more because of that, and because of not being able to explain and not taking action. In fact, even just appointing him into a prime position, that's what happened there. So they talked about that. This is not the national elections. Our elections happen. I know you have yours every 4 years. We have ours every 5 years. But there is talk about a leadership change. And I believe the front runner happens to be, there's two front runners. One happens to be Angela Rayner. The other person is Andy Burnham. The only difference is
Okay.
in the UK, in order to be appointed into government, any government position in Parliament, you have to win an election. You have to hold a seat. So it would be like, for example, if you don't have a Senate or a Congress seat, you cannot go for a leadership seat in government. So, for example, Keir Starmer still holds his local parliamentary seat for where he lives. He won his election.
Okay.
If he didn't win his election, he couldn't be prime minister. So there is a slight difference in the way that you can become a leader of a party
The
and
hierarchy.
in government. But
Okay.
the other things are, you know, obviously there's, and I'll let you take these over, the redistricting. You know, it's
In
like a contact
Alabama.
sport in Alabama and Virginia.
Yeah.
And the fact that they push through these deportation cases when they want to, you know, it's fast track retaliation. And the really sad one was this ICE situation. You know,
Oh yeah.
it's becoming cruelty disguised as policy. And I can't, I mean, I'll allow you to speak on that because I've had a long talk and really, I just don't know what to say about that.
Yeah. You talking about Alabama, right? And the
No, I was
voter
talking about
rights.
the redistricting and also the ICE case and the fact that they
The Jerry
just killed some people on a ship, no evidence, just bodies, no reasons why. You know, once
right.
again, a lawless government in action. And that's it for me.
Yeah. So we can, you know, just a little notes and stuff that I took going on as far when it comes to, and this overall is what they call is gerrymandering. So gerrymandering is when they, you know, move around the congressional maps when it comes to, you know, voting laws because they, you know, manipulate it. And let's be very clear, we do understand that both sides of the party do it. Okay, we know that Democrats do it and we know that Republicans do it, but typically Republicans, you know, they do it specifically for a particular reason. But anyway, getting into the whole Alabama voting rights coup, right? This is very important for us to pay attention to because right now, what is happening, I'm going to explain to y'all. Alabama GOP moves to kill the second black district just days before the primary votes, right? So Republicans in Alabama just passed a law on May 8th, 2028, that would ignore the results of their own May 19th primary elections if they can get the Supreme Court to throw out the current map. They want to remap, they want to, you know, redistrict. So the Supreme Court blow on April 29th, 2026, the Supreme Court ruled in Louisiana versus Calais, if I'm saying that right, Calais, the race cannot be the predominant factor in drawing maps unless there's a compelling interest. This ruling significantly weakened Section 2 of the Voting Rights Act. And we know what the Voting Rights Act and how powerful and important it is. We had a lot of our ancestors that marched and fought for these acts to be in place. So the Alabama pivot, Alabama Republicans immediately jumped on this, okay? The Republicans. They are now asking the Supreme Court to lift the 2023 injunction that forced them to create a second majority black district. Do y'all understand what that means? So there are districts that are being created that are necessary. So votes and the individuals within that district have a chance to vote in their area that's in close proximity, right? In their city, in their district. They are part now of that one group that probably or could have possibly been majority Republican, majority Democrat. It can go both ways sometime, but we're talking about areas that have been primarily Republican, but there's a lot of people that live within close proximity in those areas that actually vote Democrat, and their votes weren't being counted because they cut the line down the middle of the cake, basically, and said that they, you know, wouldn't be counted within that district area. Their votes wouldn't be counted within that district area. And so in these cities, in these areas, the problem with it is these are the majority urban or black districts, cities, and areas that they're trying to take a slice out of and cut them off from their votes being able to matter and count within that state. So they got upset about that, basically. Okay, it forced them. They were mad that they forced them to create a majority black district, the one currently represented by Shamari Figures. Okay, this is the representative for that district. Now, here's the secret legislation. Governor Kay Ivey just signed House Bill number 1 and Senate Bill number 1. These bills allow the state to hold a special election later this year to replace the May 19th primary winners. only if the Supreme Court lets them revert to their old gerrymandering 2023 maps. So basically what they're saying is that Republicans feel as though their hands were forced, right, to change these districts. So predominantly Black cities and neighborhoods and all of those things could not vote and their vote count in that state. What is happening is with the House Bill 1 and the Senate Bill 1, they want to refer things back to how they used to be, right? They want to go backwards. So when the special election comes up on May 19th, despite who was winning from the first election or the primary election, there could be a chance for things to be swung, right? Like a swung vote. But in order to do that, the Supreme Court has to allow them to revert to their old gerrymandering 2023 map. Now, let's talk about Clarence Thomas, because we have a whole nother video that's going to be just about him. Y'all wait for that and wait till the end. So Clarence Thomas is at the center of all this. Justice Clarence Thomas is the one who asked the plaintiffs for a response by 5 p.m. on Monday, May 11th, which is today. So by 5 p.m. today, he is requesting a response from plaintiffs. The fate of Alabama's Black representation is literally sitting on his desk right now. So this is why a lot of people have a lot to say when it comes to Clarence Thomas, because he is Black. Yes, let's be clear. And basically, Black people that live in Alabama, in these cities, in these areas, in these districts, are not understanding why he's not necessarily fighting on their side, right? Like their vote, their voice should matter within the district in the close proximity that they live in. To fight against that and say that, no, they should be not considered, right, and cut off based off of the mapping, right? That it doesn't make sense. They don't feel as though, you know, that's very much supportive coming from him being a Black man. So erasing representation, this is what it's about, right? They aren't just redrawing lines. They are trying to fire a sitting Black congressman, Shamari Figures, before he even finishes his first term. They want to use a map that was already ruled to be illegal in the first place, just because the Supreme Court changed the rules mid-game, right? So anybody who's out here, they play sports and stuff like that. Say you're playing a sport, you know what the rules to that sport is. And mid-game, somebody comes in, wants to change the sport because they know if they change that, the other team that wants to win badly probably can win if they switch up the rules, right? And how things are supposed to go. Because they see that the opposing team is possibly winning and going to win. And so they can't let that happen. They don't want that to happen. So now they throw in, you know, they throw in a little caveat right there and they try to switch up the rules. I'm just trying to break it down and, like, you know, making it in layman's terms here. So the Confederate playbook. This is the rise of Confederacy in action. While we are distracted by the headlines, Alabama lawmakers are in special sessions on a Friday night, passing bills to make your vote on May 19th completely worthless. So if you are someone who lives in Alabama, and let's be very clear, this is something that they are going to try and probably and possibly do in maybe all of the states here in the United States. It just hasn't come to your state yet, right? But this is what they're starting with in Alabama. So your vote is completely worthless. This is literally what they are trying to fight back and forth about. Now let's talk about Betty White Boynton's warning, because we got to go back in history, y'all. Y'all know we're going to do it. So in 1965, civil rights marcher Betty White Boynton was at the State House this week, saying she feels like she's right back in 1965. She's saying this. If the people who bled for the right to vote are telling you that we are moving backwards, I think you better listen. Because these voting rights that we have, these civil rights that we have ancestors that some unfortunately are no longer with us and some still live to tell the tale, that fought tooth and nail for us to have these set rights, for things to be fair across the board. especially when it comes to our votes, because when we vote, that's our voice. That's us speaking up about what's important to us, what we need, and what we are going to demand this democracy to do and put in place to make things better for the people who reside in this country. Clarence Thomas, he's the gatekeeper here, okay? He has until the end of today in Alabama. If Alabama can move forward with the map that keeps Black power suppressed, he has that in his hands. It's the same man who keeps voting against the interests of people who look like him, and he's been called out for it. So we'll get into a video about that at the end of this live, y'all. From, like I said, one of my favorite people who breaks it down everly so well. What's up, Nafisa? How you doing? Thanks for coming in. How are you today? Thank you. Oh yeah, so okay, so that's a little breakdown there about, you know, what's going on with the gerrymandering in Alabama. And again, it's 3:09 p.m. Eastern time here in the United States in North Carolina. So we got about 2 hours. We got about 2 hours, and we're going to see. We're going to see what the fates is going to be when it comes to the voting rights of the state of Alabama. Now, what was another one of the topics? Is there another topic that you wanted to talk about, Imani, before we keep pressing along? Because we do got a long way to go.
No, we can just continue with the video, actually.
Okay. All right. Let's get right into it, and we'll meet y'all in the chat.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, I don't think there's anything else that I need.
Analysis finds U.S. military intelligence gathering flights are surging off the coast of Cuba. Since February, the U.S. Navy and Air Force have conducted at least 25 intelligence gathering flights off Cuba's coast, using the same surveillance aircraft active in the lead up to the U.S. strikes on Iran. Russia and Ukraine accused each other of violating a U.S. brokered 3-day ceasefire. Ukrainian officials said Russian attacks killed 3 people and left many others wounded over the weekend, while Russia's defense ministry accused Ukraine of breaking the ceasefire more than 1,000 times. Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky said his forces had responded in kind to Russian drone and artillery fire. On Saturday, Russian President Vladimir Putin told reporters he thought Russia's attacks on Ukraine were nearing an end.
The West promised assistance and then began fueling a confrontation with Russia that continues to this day. I think the matter is coming to an end, but it is a serious matter.
Putin's remarks came after Russia held Victory Day celebrations with a military parade that for the first time in nearly 2 decades featured no tanks, armored vehicles, or other heavy weaponry after the equipment was prioritized for the front line in Ukraine. And in Hungary, Péter Magyar was sworn in Saturday to become Hungary's new prime minister, ending 16 years of Viktor Orban's authoritarian rule. Magyar's pro-EU center-right TISA party won 141 of 199 parliamentary seats last month in a landslide victory out of the Hungarian parliament building after 12 years of absence. The TISA party also held an all-day event called a System-Changing People's Festival. This is Hungary's new prime minister, Péter Magyar.
The Hungarian people have given us a mandate to put an end to decades of drifting. They have given us a mandate to open a new chapter in Hungary's history, not only to change the government, but to change the system as well, to start again.
And those are some of the headlines. This is Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman. Thanks for watching Democracy Now! On YouTube. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to make sure you never miss a video. And for more of our audience-supported journalism, go to democracynow.org, where you can download our news app, sign up for our newsletter, subscribe to the daily podcast, and so much more.
All right, y'all. So that was a wrap up, of the video with Democracy Now!, which we love that channel. I love watching their wrap ups because it's not just United States politics, it's worldwide politics. And we get to learn a little bit about what's going on all over this big, beautiful globe in all different countries. Is there any topics that stood out more to you, Imani, that you'd like discussed a little bit more before we take a quick song break? Yeah, I can hear you now. Can you hear me? I can hear you, but I don't know if you can hear me. Can you hear me now? I don't know. The sound may be going on. It's probably StreamYard. Okay, she'll be right back. So, yeah. All right, we're going to get back into it in just a minute, y'all. We're going to take a quick song break. We'll get our audio back together and we'll be moving right along. So stay tuned, y'all. Don't leave because we got to talk about this Hantavirus. I don't know if you guys have heard about it. Some other people have discussed it and reported on it, but we have some updates here just as soon as 11 hours ago. And we have some information coming directly from the CDC. We can't be sure we can, never mind. That's a whole nother conversation for another day. We'll see what the CDC has to say. Let's go ahead and take this quick song break, y'all, and we'll be right back. All right, y'all. Thank you so much for rocking with us with that quick little song break. I think we got Imani back. Let's go ahead and check this down. Can you hear me, Imani? Let me see if I can hear you again. Can you? I can't hear you. Can you hear me? I think you can hear me because you took it off mute, but we can't hear you. Check your mic settings real quick. Let me see. Everything's good on my end. Yeah. Now StreamYard's end, it's pretty good. See about yours if it's cool. If you can check your mic or sound settings on your mic because we can't hear you anymore. It be happening to me all the time. I'll be having to get it right back up. So while we're doing that, I'm going to just go ahead and get the next video just pulled to the screen, and then we'll check the sound in just a bit. Give me just a moment. I'll be right back. Okay, you there,
Can you hear me?
Imani?
Can you hear
Yes, we can
me?
hear you now. Yeah, I can
Yeah.
hear you now. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, perfect. All right, we got it fixed. We got it fixed. Okay, good, good, good. All right, so moving right along, y'all. Let's go ahead and get into this next topic. So, I don't know if you guys have heard or have seen, but apparently there could be possibly a new endemic on the verge. Allegedly, we can't be sure. We have some reports that we're going to play today directly from the CDC. But let me go ahead and tell you guys just a bit about it before we get into the video. We're going to be moving right along. So we're talking about basically hold on, let me get back to my notes, y'all. I done got out of place. Hold on, give me 1 second. We talking about this what is it? How do you pronounce it? I'm pronouncing it wrong. It's called the Hantavirus, the Hantavirus outbreak,
Havanta.
right? And so what we'll
It's
be listening,
Havanta.
huh?
Havanta.
Havanta? Okay, Havanta
Yeah.
virus. Havanta. Okay. So basically, we're going to be listening to a video right here, right? Directly from the CDC, because this virus now has medical officials on high alert after an international evacuation commenced of the affected cruise ship MV Handias as it docked off of Tenerife with officials from more than 20 countries coordinating the return of passengers. Now, former CDC Director Dr. Robert Redfield joins News Nation Prime to discuss this, and he has some concerns for the United States and the American people, considering that, apparently it has now touched the U.S. soil. So let's go ahead and play a little bit of what he has to say. Let me skip past this ad real quick. Give me just a sec, and we'll get into it. What do you know about this, Imani? What do you think about any of this? Have you seen any reports so far as well?
No, to be honest
Imani?
with you, I haven't. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Can you?
Yeah.
Yeah, I haven't paid
Yeah, I
much
can hear you.
attention to it. I prefer to wait and see what happens because I think people are in a fearful state since the last pandemic. And
Right.
I think it's really, really essential for people to listen to what we're told, not necessarily believe everything that we're told, but I think we can create panic and scare if we start, you know, uh, hyping up a lot of stuff that we don't know about. So I haven't really been reading about it. As far as I know, I'm not ill at the moment, so I'm not worried at the moment. And that's how I'm looking at this. In the same way as I looked at the CV-19 until I had it. In fact, I had it and I thought I just had flu and got over it. And later on, it was announced what it really was. So
Oh,
um, that
God
I
bless.
face these things in the same way.
I'm glad you're okay, because that was a real shaky time. And as far as I'm concerned, when me and mom, we were tested. Mom was testing very frequently because she's fine wine age, and she does have some other ailments, which they were saying very um put you at higher risk, right, to not surviving the virus. So we used to check frequently, and from the times that we would go and get tested and checked, we never contracted CVID. So God bless to everyone who has contracted it and didn't end, in fatality for you, and you were able to fight through it. And like you said, you're just thinking it's just a common cold or the flu, and so we have to keep an eye on all of those things as well. But let me just give you a quick little background before we get into this video. Like I said, this is what they basically are talking about is a new virus or whatnot that could possibly spread around. They don't know how severe it could be. We'll hear from the CDC. professional in just a moment. But the outbreak began in early April 2026. While sailing from Argentina, Chile, it was officially reported that the WHO on May 2nd, to the WHO, excuse me, y'all. And so we also are seeing now that there have been, unfortunately, 3 fatalities so far. A Dutch couple and a German woman are no longer with us due to the virus. And as far as the evacuation, passengers disembarked in Tenerife, Canary Islands over the weekend under high-level bio-containment protocols such as PPE, mask, and military escort. Now, this is an update talking about the U.S. landing. And the U.S. landing, a lot of individuals ported in Omaha, Nebraska, and Atlanta, Georgia. So as of today, 18 Americans from that ship have been repatriated. So in Omaha, Nebraska, University of Nebraska Medical Center says that there are 16 passengers that are being held at the National Quarantine Center. 15 are asymptomatic, means they have no symptoms, and 1 passenger has tested positive, but is not yet showing any symptoms. They are using the same high-level biocontainment units used for the Ebola virus. Now, when we go over to Atlanta, Georgia, at Emory University Hospital, they have 2 passengers, which is a couple, right, so far. One is already experiencing symptoms. This is the case to watch for your Georgia audience, right, in Atlanta, Georgia. Emory is a world leader in infectious disease control, but this is a major test of their containment protocols. We will see, is basically what they're saying. So let's go ahead and get into the video. I don't want to say too much. Let's listen to the professionals directly from the CDC and what he feels we need to take precautions on when it comes to this. So let's go ahead and get into the video, and we'll meet y'all in the chat.
For more tonight, we do want to bring in former CDC Director Dr. Robert Redfield. He served as director from 2018 to 2021 under President Trump. He was also a member of the White House Coronavirus Task Force. Dr. Redfield, I particularly appreciate your perspective on this tonight. And let's start with what Leah Lando was just describing, the 17 Americans who disembarked from the Hantavirus-stricken cruise ship today in the Canary Islands. We know CDC staff evaluated them at the scene. They're going to be taken to Nebraska for a brief visit, not a full mandatory quarantine. Why make that optional? Why not quarantine these passengers out of an abundance of caution, especially with the 6-week incubation period?
Yeah, I just think it's a judgment call. I think what you're going to see happen when they get to Nebraska, I know CDC is going to be there. They're going to do an aggressive, what we call risk assessment. And then depending on that risk assessment, they'll recommend either staying at the facility or potential isolation under observation at home. And, you know, different individuals, if they're given a choice, may choose to want to just stay in a facility rather than necessarily go home with the uncertainty of whether or not they may, in fact, be
If you I mean, I think some might choose to stay, but others have life responsibilities. They want to return to their communities. They have children. They have to go back to their jobs. Yeah. You say it's a judgment call. Is this a judgment call you would have made?
I'm pretty conservative. I think my instinct would be to have the individuals, because the incubation period can be, as you know, up to 8 weeks. I think I would probably err in keeping people in isolation. But it's a judgment call, and I have a lot of confidence in Jay Bhattacharya and the current leaders and subject matter experts at CDC. We know a lot about this virus. The challenge we have, you know, about people going back and looking for symptoms is the symptoms for this virus when you start to get symptomatic are very, very nondescript. I mean, it's fever, it's aches and pains, it's diarrhea, it's headache. I mean, it could be flu, it could be COVID, it could be any other respiratory illness. And so it just makes things confusing. It's a little cleaner if we know we have them in a controlled environment. But I think they're going to give them the option. I mean, we did something very similar during the COVID pandemic where we gave people initially, they all went to the military bases that we brought up to speed. But then we gave people the option to go back and to be followed by their local health officials.
I mean, some Americans, let me ask quickly, and I don't mean to interrupt, but we're almost out of time, and I really want to ask you a couple more questions here. Some Americans who previously left the ship already returned to their communities without any kind of check, without any kind of quarantine. They're being told to self-report if they're experiencing symptoms. People are worried about this, Dr. Redfield. Are you concerned about the as many as 40 people who already disembarked, who already went home in 12 different countries?
No, I think that the health groups are following them. The one thing I want to stress is that this virus, Hantaviruses in general, are transmitted rodent to human.
But is this the Andes virus? Is this the Andes strain, which does spread human to human and has up to a 50% mortality rate?
Yeah, the Andes virus is the one hantavirus that can transmit human to humans and go human to human very inefficiently. But obviously, we've shown evidence that it did. On this ship, it clearly transmitted human to human. The doctor, I think, got infected by taking care of the patients. But it's a very difficult virus to transmit. So, if I was on the boat and now being shipped back to Nebraska, I would choose to stay there probably for 42 days rather than come back and, try to exist in my house just to make sure that I didn't have any evidence of the virus and didn't have to deal with it. But as I say, I think it's an option. And I don't know what CDC will finally decide, whether they'll decide to ask, people to stay in the facility or not.
Yeah, it does seem like they're allowing people to make that call for themselves. I want to ask you one more question with the time we have, Dr. Redfield. Coming out of the COVID pandemic, there is such distrust, unfortunately, in our agencies, in our science. People are scarred by this, not just from the general trauma of having lived through this, but by the messaging that we saw early on in the pandemic. Sanitize your groceries, wear a mask, don't wear a mask. And then it coming out that being told to wear a mask was to preserve the PPE and gear for the medical professionals who really needed it at the time. Given all of that, what do we need to do next for the next pandemic? What lessons do we need to learn to not have a repeat of that situation?
Well, you hit the most important thing that we lost during the last pandemic. I think it was public trust. And you can't have public health without public trust. Public trust should go both ways. We should ask the public to trust us, and we should trust the public. And I think, my argument is, and I did get criticized for this when I was CDC director, one of my answers to many questions were, I don't know the answer. And people would say, well, you can't say you don't know the answer. You're the CDC director. I said, but I don't know the answer.
Do you think that any...
Tell them the truth. You got to tell the truth. And I think that's the beginning of how we begin to rebuild public trust. You don't make up answers just because you feel you need to have an answer.
I really appreciate that. Do you think that Americans and that the public should trust everything that we're hearing from the WHO and the CDC right now, that this public threat is low for this virus?
I think for this virus, I have a high degree of confidence that they're accurate. Remember, with the COVID virus, when it came, when I was CDC director, we didn't know the COVID virus. It had never been really in humans before. These hantaviruses have been around since the 1950s. We had the huge outbreak in the Korean War. The U.S. military had a lot of experience with Korean hemorrhagic fever. Actually, for the Andes virus right now, there's been an outbreak in Argentina since last July. There's been over 100 infections in Argentina. It's spread out of Patagonia into the middle of Argentina. As you mentioned, unfortunately, it's had about a 35 to 40% mortality. But we know these viruses. We've studied them for over 70 years. So I think we can have a much higher degree of confidence that we're making sound decisions based on, decades of scientific evidence about how these hantaviruses act.
I hear that.
Said, I still think there's a, advantage to approach these things with a high degree of caution. And you are right. When the COVID pandemic started, the WHO and said, very definitively, there was no human-to-human transmission. Right. Very definitively, you can't get asymptomatic infection. And, they were wrong. And so it does cause the American public at least to have some skepticism. But here, I have a lot of confidence in CDC. The subject matter experts on this, I know them. Jay Bhattacharya, who's the acting director, I know well. I have a lot of confidence in his judgment. So I think the American public should rest that we have really good experts here, and based on the history and the knowledge we have in this class of viruses for over 50, 60.
Yeah, I appreciate that the virus is well known. That 30 to 50% or 40% mortality rate, it scares me, and I think it scares a lot of people. But Dr. Redfield, I really appreciate the candor and the time tonight. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks. God bless the doctor.
You too.
Thank you.
All right, y'all. So, that was just a little bit of information there from a professional within the CDC as far as this new antivirus. I do have some notes that I jotted down. So I'm going to go ahead and just read through a few of those, and then me and Imani will chat about it, and we'll be moving on to the next topic. So basically, as we heard them said as well, with this virus, this is the Andes variant. And this is the variant that is transmitted from human to human. Most hantaviruses only come from rodent waste. The Andes strain is the only one that spreads person to person through saliva in close contact. They also have the 42-day shadow. Officials have put all passengers in a 42-day quarantine. Why? Because the incubation period is incredibly long. You could feel fine for 6 weeks and then suddenly get hit. And then now you're feeling terrible. And the mortality rate. This is the scary part. Right now it is sitting at, and I believe that the reporter spoke about 50%, but they say they were sitting at 38% fatality rate in this current cluster. For comparison, this is significantly higher than CVID. So let's talk about the transparency angle, right? And you know how I am, y'all. I'm just for it, like I said. When CVID started and it went as far as it did, it was due to lack of transparency from the government and the administration that was in place at the time. And, people not being able to handle these severe of situations, right? So the government is telling us that the risk is very low. However, at the same time, they are flying people in on military planes and putting them in Ebola grade containment units. Nebraskans and Georgians deserve to know, if the risk is so low, why are the precautions so high? Then we have to go ahead and get into RFK Jr. in the health policy angle. Governor Jim Pillen of Nebraska is praising the Trump administration and the HHS Secretary RFK Jr. for the strong plan. We need to hold them to that. Is the plan actually about public health, or is it about optics? If this spreads in Atlanta or Omaha, the buck stops with them. And then we have to talk about the silent threat. The virus has a 42-day window, so they say. This means we won't know for a full extent of this until late June. And mind you, the outbreak started in April. It's May. So don't let the media drop this story in 3 days and we just forget about it and keep pushing forward. We need to stay on top of those 18 people and ensure that they are getting the real proper care and not just being stored somewhere in a unit. And also, symptoms to watch. If you are in these areas and you hear about people with a sudden high fever, intense muscle aches, which is in their thighs or their back, and then shortness of breath, maybe pay a little bit more close attention. With Andes strain, you don't have time to wait. It moves from flu-like symptoms to respiratory failure in almost 48 hours. And this is not to scare anybody, but it's just to give people some of the facts that are there that we can do our research and find on our own. Because we do know the first time around that it was very, very different, okay? People were waiting and waiting and waiting to hear specifically from our government and our officials as far as what was really going on with that virus and that outbreak, what to do, how to, keep yourself protected, all of those things. And a lot of people did not get any real, actual, factual information on how to do so until very, very late in the game. However, that does lead me to the fact that I feel as though there is hope because, okay, Monty, you're back. I feel as though there is hope because, can you hear me?
Can you hear
Okay,
me?
good. Yeah, I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, good. Okay, good. All right. Yeah. So, I just feel like one of the things that we can rely on, and that's with everything in life, is experience, right? So due to how things went down, and just like the reporter was saying, and I loved her questions, and I loved how poised she was as far as presenting those questions to the CDC officer or representative. Because of what we've already experienced, we do have a lack of trust, and we do have a level of fear that our government is not going to be real with us. They're not going to tell us all of the stuff. They might not even tell us what they need to tell us in the right time frame that they need to tell us to protect and prevent ourselves from these type of things. But because there are a lot of people, and we know elders, when CVID came out, a lot of the elders were the ones that were giving the advice and the medical information necessary for us to keep ourselves safe, because they had lived through other outbreaks and pandemics and things of that nature. So, once you live through one, you survive through one, you kind of are a little bit more equipped when the next one could possibly be coming. And we're not saying that's what it is, but we can't be sure. We need to keep our eyes and our ears open. What do you think about this, Imani, from what we heard just from that video and some of the stats that we read off today?
I think it is kind of a wait and see. I think we're a little bit more on the alert because of last time. And like I said, I don't know if I could. I can understand people who went home because of the incubation period being 6 weeks.
Right.
A lot of it depends on what your day-to-day time is like. I don't think I'd like to be quarantined for 7 weeks, but if it meant it saved other lives, I'm sure I would. But we really don't know what it is. And that's the most we can say now, right about now. We really don't know.
And we do have to take into consideration that we can't necessarily call people selfish or careless. These people were on a cruise ship, and it seems like they were on some type of vacation. We know that typically, in our lives, you work on a job, you got your PTO, you take a certain amount of time off from work. And a lot of people, I think there is a push to get back to the job. I think there's a push to get back to the family and the home or the pets or whatever it may be. And like you were saying, Imani, they probably are thinking in their mind, I just need to get back home. I've already been away this long, and I don't want to, be away from what I need to get back to for an additional 42 days. So, that's over a month. That's like a month and some change. So some people may say it like, "Ooh, the vacation continues." And well, not when you're in quarantine. And they are having people they were saying the grade or the level of the quarantine is as hinderous as it was during the Ebola virus. So that's got to be pretty locked down, tight, uncomfortable, all of those things. And so nobody wants to go through that for a month plus. However, it is what it is. Like you said, it's a wait and see. But let's go ahead and move right on, y'all. So we got to get into our next topic for the live that we'll be discussing. And this will be coming from none other than Roland Martin. And of course, Roland Martin has some commentary and some things to talk about with us when it comes to the rise of Confederacy. Republicans move to destroy Black voting power across the South. Roland was going to talk about it. We touched on it briefly earlier, but let's hear from him as well, because he really can break it down probably in a better way than I can and give us all of the ins and outs of what this means, and also really hone into the importance of us seeing what is literally trying to be stripped from us, that a lot of our Black and brown ancestors have almost, fought for, marched for, and possibly sacrificed their lives for these type of, voting rights and powers for us to have. And it's literally looking like they're trying to just, dismantle that and reverse it in totality. So let's go ahead and listen to a little bit of this, and Then we'll do some commentary in between. It's not too long of a video, about 14 minutes and 38 seconds. So we'll split it up in either 2 to 3 parts and do some commentary in between. Let me get this on the stage. We'll watch it together, y'all. We'll meet y'all in the chat per usual. And like I say always, y'all are welcome to comment and chit chat with us. And we all don't have to agree. You can have a difference of opinion, and that is welcome here, because that is just how it is. You know what I mean? We all not going to be on the same page all the time when it comes to certain things, especially when it comes to politics. And so you're more than welcome to come in, even if you have a difference of thought, vision, or opinion on any of these topics. Let's go ahead and get into the video, and we'll meet y'all in the chat.
Today was Tennessee. Today it is Alabama, wiping out black congressional districts. The rise of the Confederacy continues as Republicans completely try to destroy black political power in the South. Just 1 week after the Supreme Court gave them the go-ahead to wipe out districts that they claim was based upon race. As we said, we saw what happened yesterday in Alabama. Today, there was a vote there that not only takes out that new opportunity district that where you have Congressman Shamari Figures, they also wiping out that longtime seat right there in the black belt of Congresswoman Terry Sewell. This follows what happened in Tennessee, and we're seeing other southern states do the exact same thing. Mississippi wants to remove the seat of longtime Congressman Benny Thompson, the only Democrat, only African-American who represents that state as well. And so what they are saying is that black people, guess what? You're not going to have representation in Congress. And so it is an absolute bloodbath. This is very reminiscent of what took place in the period after Reconstruction. And so and then, of course, we're going to talk about what happened in Virginia as well with the Supreme Court there. All right, let's get right to it. Bringing our guest. Joining us right now is Congresswoman Terry Sewell. She joins us right now. Kristen Clark. Christian is, of course, former head of the Civil Rights Division, the Department of Justice under President Biden, and now General Counsel for the NAACP. Glad to have both of them here. I'm going to pull the third guest, but first of all, let me go to you, Christian. Y'all filed a lawsuit in Tennessee on what grounds?
So we all witnessed this horrific moment yesterday where lawmakers dismantled, targeted, destroyed the only majority black district in the state of Tennessee that gives black voters a fair opportunity to elect candidates of choice. We filed suit yesterday in state court, and what we're challenging is the proclamation that was issued by the governor. The state constitution and state law is very clear. You want to call a special session of Congress, you need to be clear about the purpose. He claims that it was for the purposes of redrawing the maps, but they did a lot more than just that. They also repealed a law that's been on the books for 5 decades that actually prohibits mid-decade redistricting. They also slipped in a provision that it wipes away the residency requirement for running for office for a whole year. And in addition, they said that election officials don't have to notify voters about their new precincts under this racially gerrymandered map. So there's a whole lot that happened yesterday. And a lot of those additional things that the legislature did were not included in the proclamation. Our goal here is to get this session wiped off the books. It was called illegally. They exceeded the scope of the proclamation, and the existing map is what should be used for the 2026 election cycle. It's the first phase of a long fight, Roland.
Can you really earn a degree without paying anything?
Yes, you can earn a degree at Maestro without paying.
We've had Janae Nelson on the show. We've had Damon Hewitt with the Laws Committee for Civil Rights Under Law, which you previously had on the show as well. And what the Supreme Court has done with this recent decision, they're doing all they can to handcuff civil rights laws as much as possible.
You know, Justice Roberts claimed it was a new day in America. Discrimination is a thing of the past. Well, in 8 days, lawmakers across the South have proved Roberts wrong. We have seen the floodgates of racism open and unleashed, and their very first target, the very top of their agenda, is wiping out Black electoral opportunity and Black leadership. It is a moment, I think, where everyone should be extremely angry at generations of hard-fought efforts to open up the doors of democracy. Like, we're seeing it all wiped away. I hope that folks will respond by showing up or on Black voters and the war on Black elected officials. We know that there's a lot of suffering right now, lack of access to health care, an affordability crisis, lack of access to quality housing like they have never voted before, because we are at the crossroads in American democracy.
Absolutely. It's a battle. Kristen Clark, we certainly appreciate it. Keep up the fight. Thanks a lot.
Thanks for having me.
Let's go to Alabama. Congresswoman Terry Sewell joins us right now. And the Alabama legislature did the exact same thing that Tennessee did, wiping out 2 seats there held by Democrats, both African-American. Congresswoman Sewell, massive protests were taking place all across Alabama. And as Kristen said, this was a direct attack on Black political leadership. The rise of Confederacy, these Republicans in these red states, they did not waste any time in targeting Black people. And in fact, in some places, they're not targeting white Democrats, specifically targeting Black elected officials. Congresswoman Sewell, can you hear me?
I can. I see that you have the protests that were going on in the State House in Alabama today. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. And what I was saying is these Republicans, listen, they are specifically targeting Black people. This is absolutely a GOP war on Black America.
Absolutely. You know, today the vote was, there were 2 bills. So let me just start by saying that the slight difference between Alabama and Tennessee is the fact that we actually have an injunctive order that prohibits them from changing their maps until 2030. As you will recall, we won the Milligan case.
Yeah, so we'll pause it right there because we're at the halfway mark with that video. So we can go ahead and do a little bit of commentary. Imani, if you're there, I'll let you go ahead and start with some of your thoughts, feelings, and opinions on this. And I do have some notes that I made, so I'll read those in just a bit. But you go first.
Right. The South is running the same old playbook they've run since Jim Crow, since time immemorial. Erase Black districts, erase Black power. You know, Alabama and Tennessee, they didn't hesitate. They moved the moment the Supreme Court cracked that door open for them. And it's not random, it's coordinated. It's a rollback in history, straight out of the post-Reconstruction era. When you're targeting every Black district in sight, it's not political. It's a purge. It's a purge.
Yeah.
And this is where I say that people need to think about votes matter. And it's not only the national vote that matters, it's the local votes, it's the school board votes, it's the councillor votes, it's the everything vote. You need to pay attention to what's going on, because this is not only going to stop in these states, it's going to spread wide as far and as long as they can go get away with it. You know, they
Right.
I mean, they want to. I mean, basically, black voters had a fair shot in some districts, and they want to snatch it back. And this is the biggest rollback of black seats in modern history. And remember, Alabama went 115 years without a black member of Congress. And some people are eager to go back to that. You know, it really, really, really is time to, you know, this is not tweaking, you know, a little bit of redrawing of maps. It's a damn takeover. It's bullshit. Excuse my language.
No, I agree with you. And I'll go ahead and tell you something, just a little piece of information in history. So I live, you know, in the Carolinas. I live in North Carolina, right? We know that is considered to be a southern state. So when I see a lot of these things happening, like I said, we need to keep our eyes and ears open because it's probably just a matter of time before it may transfer or move to your state that you may be in, especially if it's a southern one, right? Because they start with South first. Now, another interesting fact that I can tell you is we have a slave house in downtown city that I live in, right? And this slave house that we have down here, what it was or what it represented back in the day is where they actually would take slaves to be sold and marketed, right? And they would, you know, present them there and people could come and they can decide which slave they want and they would take them. So if that is, you know, the essence of what can reside here within this city that I live in, you can only imagine what they may do next year, especially when it comes to this as far as voter rights. So that's just, you know, as equally as it is a Air Force military town, it also has a strong history when it comes to racism and slavery. But I wanted to go ahead and just read through a few notes real quick. So as far as the history, and we'll go back, y'all. We're not talking about North Carolina. We're going back to Alabama. We'll talk about some of the history when it comes to Alabama. I think most people, if you know some history, is the Black Belt. So historically, this is a region across the middle of Alabama that is named for its rich, dark soil, but it became home to the state's largest concentration of Black Americans due to the history of slavery in the cotton industry, right? So the tactic, which is called cracking, for decades, Alabama used a tactic called cracking. They would take the densely populated Black Belt and split it into multiple congressional districts. By spreading Black voters out, they ensured those voters were always a minority in every district, meaning they could never elect a candidate who represented their specific interests. Now, let's talk about the Voting Rights Act, the VRA, right? This part of the law prohibits any voting practice that results in denial or abridgment of the right to vote based on race. For 40 years, it was the primary tool that was used to stop the cracking. Okay, so now we have to fast forward to 2026. Okay, let's talk about what is happening right now, what we're seeing. So we have number one, this isn't just about one district, it's about a national mathematical strategy to control the U.S. House of Representatives. The Louisiana trigger. Last week, the Supreme Court ruled in Louisiana case, Louisiana versus Callies, if I'm saying that right. The race cannot be the predominant factor. In drawing maps, Alabama Republicans saw this as a green light to dismantle the second Black district they were forced to create in 2024. They never wanted to do it. They never wanted it to be that way. And now they want to take it back to the way it was. So this is what they call the zombie map. Alabama is trying to bring back a 2023 map that was already struck down by federal courts as illegal. They are betting that new Supreme Court majority will now find that old illegal map acceptable under new rules. Now, this is all happening mid-election chaos. Why do this while people are already voting, right? Strategic confusion. If voters are confused about which map is real, they are less likely to show up or vote in the right direction. And the clean slate play. If the Supreme Court allows a do-over primary, the GOP can effectively wipe out the monument of the current Democratic representative, Shamari Figures, which is the representative for that area, and start the race over with a map that favors Republicans more. So this is beyond just the seat. When we talk to one another, we have to remember this isn't just about a politician's job. It's about the resources for the community. So what is the resource allocation? Congressional districts determine where federal money for hospitals, schools, and infrastructures like broadband in rural Alabama goes. This is the invisible gerrymander. By cracking the Black Belt, they ensure that the needs of those rural majority Black communities are never the top priority for a representative who relies on white suburban voters to stay in power. Power grab to erase voices. As State Senator Roger Smitherman said on the floor last week, this is an attempt to destroy Black people's whole existence in the political process by making their participation in voting irrelevant again, just like it was way back in the day. And y'all know we're going to talk about it because we talk about history. So we're talking about going back as far as 1965 versus today. They want us to believe that this is a legal disagreement, but when have 80-year-old civil rights veterans protesting at the State House because it feels like 1965 all over again? That's not a disagreement. These people are saying, no, no, no. You're trying to take us back, and we refuse to go. So we talk about the state rights ghost. We are hearing the same arguments from the 1860s, even back further, and the 1960s, that the federal government has no right to tell Alabama how to run its elections. It's the rise of the Confederacy in a suit and a tie. So what are the national states? Alabama is just one piece. If it works there, it's going to happen in South Carolina, Mississippi, Tennessee, like I said, possibly North Carolina as well. They're trying to find 16 to 18 stolen seats across the South to ensure they never lose the House ever again. And like I said, y'all, if you wait to the end, Clarence Thomas is playing a huge role in this. The man who benefited from the progress of the 70s is now the one sitting at the desk waiting until 5 p.m., which is in exactly 1 hour today in U.S. time, Eastern time, to decide if Black Alabamians get to keep their vote. This is a heavy irony we have. And a lot of people do not have a lot of trust in Clarence Thomas when it comes to making decisions that are good and right for Black people. So we cannot be sure, based off of his ruling his vote, we'll see what is going to happen. So, you know, it is all really a mess, but it's true. It's true. It's really happening. These are the important things that we could be discussing and talking about, and that we have been trying to speak on here and there and bring to the awareness of our people, whether you're in this country or another country. I know voting, like you were explaining to me earlier, is different in different countries. So I can only speak on this based off of the United States, right? That's how all of this is working and where this is happening right now. Now, once they can do this in one country, who's to say they may not try to do something similar in another country? We can't be sure. But, you know, just overall, I just feel like I've been seeing for a very long period of time the patterns. And I've been paying attention to it since I started getting into politics. And inch by inch, right? You give somebody an inch, they take a mile. I've been seeing how they've been trying to take things back. I see the references they make. I see, you know, all of the things that they celebrate as far as trying to go back to a period in time where, you know, there's just a certain class or race of people that were beneath and under. And I don't make these things up. I can't make them up. We're watching them. We're listening to them play out in our own eyes. you know what I'm saying, with our own ears. And when you see it, you just kind of sit there and you scratch your head and you just like, interesting. And I know life gets busy and people, you know, we got stuff to do on the day to day, but I think these are important things to pay attention to. So this is where we're at, but let's continue on with the video and we'll come back for our second commentary break in just a moment.
In 2023, which gave us an extra seat. Shamari Figures currently has that seat. And in the 2023 Supreme Court decision, Milligan, they actually upheld Section 2. And then, of course, they've now come back with the Calais decision. And since that decision, the state of Alabama has called a special election. And in that special election, they're paving the way to get rid of Black representation by making sure that if the injunction is lifted, they've asked the Supreme Court to vacate that injunction, that they would be able to hold a special election, a new primary, and make it so that, you know, African Americans can't have representation. So it's really, you know, they are, we call it the prelude to the erase of Black representation, because they do have an injunction and they have not been able to get that lifted. And so we don't trust the Supreme Court. We're working hard. We filed our briefs and all of that. And LDF is still representing the Milligan plaintiffs, and we're fighting like hell to keep the seats that we have. But if we lose that, then what they decided today would lift that injunction, and they would revert back to the 2023 map. And the 2023 map takes me to a little bit more than 50% and takes Shamari's to 30%. So they're making it harder for us to win. And that's what the Calais decision just did. It is, in my opinion, the Supreme Court decision will have the largest reduction of Black representation in American history. You and I know that it was the Voting Rights Act of 1965, hard fought. People were bludgeoned on a bridge in my hometown for that piece of legislation. But that was a seminal piece of legislation that literally changed the face of electoral politics. For the first time, we started seeing having Black mayors, Black city council members, state representatives, and members of Congress finally came back since Reconstruction. You know, in the state of Alabama, the last African American to have a seat in Congress was in 1877, and it took 115 years until Earl Hilliard came in with Jim Clyburn and Benny Thompson and the like in 1992. That's 115 years. And guess what, Roland? We're not going back. We are absolutely not going back. So what you've seen is that we've had rally after rally, a steady drumbeat, if you will. I was there with my rally on Tuesday. I led that rally. We bust in folks from Birmingham, and today you saw you know, more protests every day this week that they've been in special session. We have had activists out there and inside testifying in the public hearings. And of course, today was the vote. And they're not just trying to get rid of congressional seats. You know, the Calais decision has far-reaching results and impact. It affects every level of government, the redrawing of maps in the county, the redrawing of maps in the state legislature. And the state of Alabama had two bills up, one to undo the congressional majority-minority seats, and the second one was to undo the majority-minority state Senate seats, two of those. So they're trying in one fell swoop to get rid of 4 Black elected officials from Alabama.
When someone fails to pay their property tax,
absolutely. And one of the things that I have been making it perfectly clear that the response has to be the largest mass Black voter registration since 1965 or since the election of Obama in 2008. That's what has to happen. And so people can be mad and angry and posting on social media and having rallies, but we must show up in massive numbers in Alabama,
Absolutely.
in Tennessee, in Louisiana, in all these places to show our power.
Absolutely. You know, I've been saying that we have to mobilize, organize. Every one of us has a role to play. Our journalists to make sure that we know the facts and the truth. Our legislators, we have to legislate. I have to go back in and revise the John Robert Voting Rights Advancement Act so that when we do take back the House, we can reintroduce the bill and get rid of partisan gerrymandering. And so legislators have to legislate and citizens have to get out and vote like they've never voted before. We have to energize ourselves. We cannot feel powerless in this moment. In fact, I believe we were made for a moment such as this, that our foremothers and forefathers fought and they had a playbook. We need to take a page from that playbook and we need to go to the ballot box like we've never gone before. We need a massive voter registration drive. And if the 500,000 folks in Alabama who are registered to vote come out and vote, we could win this thing. We could win it.
To that particular point, what I have been saying that what we can't just be happy with is, 50, 55, 57% turnout. No, baseline has to be 70. Baseline turnout among Black people must be 70%, and it must hit 80, 85, 90. If we vote our numbers, we can beat these fascists.
We can, not just in the House, but we have the Senate in play as well. And we need this check and balance of this Trump administration. You know that, and I know that. What saddens me that this is on our collective watch that we're going backwards, that we're seeing the rolling back of hard-fought progress that we've made in civil rights, in immigration, in voting rights. I mean, you name it, civil liberties. We've seen this administration take a hatchet job to constitutional rights that were hard fought and won by our foremothers and forefathers that we have to protect and advance. And so we in Alabama are not going to give up. I was saying in the rally that whenever I feel low, I am reminded of what John Lewis said on that bridge the last time he visited, months before his death. And while he was riddled with cancer, his voice was very strong, Roland. And he said unequivocally, never give up. Never give in. Keep the faith, and we have to keep our eyes on the prize. And the prize is Black representation. If we don't have a seat at the table, we're going to be on the menu.
Well, absolutely. So this battle continues. Congresswoman Terry Sewell, we surely appreciate it. Keep us abreast. And like I said, one thing I've also said, in every state, in every single city, there should be citizenship training every single week. Somebody should be holding sessions every week. And again, we have to look at the numbers, study the data, look at where our voters are, and we got to reach every single one of them, get them registered first, and then drive them to the polls come November.
Absolutely. We're going to get into some good trouble.
All right, Congresswoman, we surely appreciate it. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Okay, so that was that topic. I love how she said that in the end that we're going to get into some good trouble. Because sometimes you got to get into trouble when you're standing up for what's right, fighting for what is necessary. It might get you into trouble sometimes, but it's good trouble. What do you think about that, Imani, before I get into my notes?
Right. Well, no, I like that good trouble because me and you, we're always in bad trouble.
You know I'm always in trouble, girl. I stay in trouble.
Yeah, you always in trouble. I sometimes join you in bad trouble. But no, listen, I think there were some really, really good key things that were said there. First thing about Alabama going 115 years without a Black member of Congress, without Black representation. And the fact is, they're not just redistricting and redrawing maps. They're erasing Black representation. The protests are loud. The fight is loud, but the power grab is louder. And so It demands more than outrage at this moment. It demands action. I think what Roland said about weekly citizenship training, you know, and how to build your power so that it can't be taken away is a very good idea. Getting the percentage vote up, the maths make a difference. If you're going from 55% voters to 80% voters, it makes a big difference. And it's
Right.
work that's got to be done continuously in election time and outside election time. And the other thing is, I love that quote she said, that John Lewis said, never give up, never give in, keep the faith. Never give up,
Yeah.
never give in. And we mustn't give up. We mustn't give up
Right.
because people are not thinking about, like you said, it's how things, it's where the budget is spent. It's how the money is spent. Think about this healthcare. Think about these EBT. Think about all the things that they took away and are still taking away. And think about your pocket and your affordability and putting food on your table. Because it's going to get harder and harder if people don't sit up and take note. It's no good after the fact, after you sat down and sat in front of the TV and played PlayStation and said, you know what, I'm not voting because it makes no difference. It makes a hell of a difference. And that's all I've got.
It really does. And it's, you know, and the thing about it is right and wrong is wrong. And I know a lot of people like to believe that, oh my God, it's the Black people and they're always complaining and they're always the ones that's talking about this stuff. No, it's not just us, because people, as people in general, know right from right and wrong from wrong. And they're speaking up about it. They're standing up to talk about it. They're actually pointing out a lot of the things that even sometimes we may miss because we're too busy fighting with each other and being a part of nonsense, right? And they're even out here now saying this is literally what it's looking like and what it looks like it's going to be if we allow this to keep going further. We cannot allow that because it's not right. It's not right for us. It's not right for them. It's not right for people in general, what they are trying to do within this administration. And just, you know, real quick, just, you know, a few of the notes and stuff that I have. I don't want to be too much because, you know, we do our history stuff during a different segment. But I just wanted to go ahead and just, you know, point this out real quick, you know, when it comes to the breakdown of all of this. Okay. So the goal is institutional control. We know that, right? So they're talking about the power of the seats, power of 14 seats. And analysts are out here basically estimating that by redrawing these maps in states like Alabama, Texas, Louisiana, Republicans could gain up to 14 extra seats in the United States House. Now, this is the Southern Strategy 2.0. In the South, race and political party are often closely linked. By diluting the Black vote, they are effectively deleting Democratic votes. This allows them to maintain a majority in Congress, even if they lose the popular vote nationwide. And again, like I said, we're going to do our segment when it comes to history, but the historical echo when we're talking about this specific topic, and we can go back as far as the 1870s, versus the 1960s, versus 2026. This is a pattern in American history. Whenever Black people make a major leap in political power, there is an immediate organized snapback. They can't let us have it. Okay. Now, the first snapback, if anybody remembers and can recall historically, post-Civil War in the 1870s, Black men were elected to Congress in record numbers. But what was the response from that? The creation of Black districts like Alabama's Black Fourth, a single district where all Black voters were dumped so they couldn't influence any other part of the state. What was the second snapback? Post-1965, after the Voting Rights Act passed. States used literacy tests and poll taxes. When those were banned, they moved to gerrymandering, drawing lines so absurd, they were called shoestring districts. And what is the third snapback? Exactly what we're seeing today. We just saw the election of Shamari Figures in Alabama and the creation of the second Black district in Louisiana. The response was the Supreme Court's ruling in Louisiana versus Calais, April 29, 2026, which effectively said that they are trying to ensure Black representation itself, racial discrimination against white voters. Please. Now, the colorblind trap. This is the most dangerous part of the current argument, right? Leaders like Justice Clarence Thomas and Justice Samuel Alito are using a philosophy called practical organism. Here's the argument. They claim that the Constitution is colorblind. Child, how is that possible? Therefore, if a state draws a map specifically to help Black people get representation, they call it unconstitutional racial gerrymandering. But the reality of that is, as Justice Kagan argued in her dissent, this ignores the impact. If you use colorblind rules in a society with a deep history of racial division, you end up protecting the status quo, which in the South specifically means protecting white political dominance. So they are using the 14th Amendment against us. The 14th Amendment was written to protect formerly enslaved people. Now the court is using it to strike down maps that help Black people. Wow, that's the great flip. But we know there's a lot of flip-flopping that's happening. We see it all the time, child. They just hop up on ship and flip-flop like a fish. So let's talk about the voter turnout myth. In his May 2026 opinion, Justice Alito claimed that because Black turnout was high in 2008 and 2012, in the Obama years, racism in voting is over, right? That is dismantled, it's gone, it doesn't exist, right? But just because we fought through the mud to get to the polls doesn't mean that the mud still isn't there, okay? So it's a local war. Alabama isn't just redrawing the congressional map. They are redrawing the state Senate maps. This affects who controls your local schools, your water, and your police departments. So I think, like, people, please, 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 this is so important. Really know, and this is what Imani was saying earlier, really know that when it comes to our votes, how important they are, and not just when it comes to the presidential vote. Our local votes are actually more important than the presidential vote, because those votes and those individuals that we get in those buildings and those seats are the ones that are going to make sure that there is a better living experience where you are and where you reside. And what is hard with that, and I can admit what's hard with that, there's so many people with different interests, right? And what their interest is for them and theirs and their family, right? And we get that. We understand that. But what we're talking about is not having even a chance, not having even a voice. If some group or party of people say, look, these are our needs, these are our concerns, and we need them to be heard, and we feel as though our voices should be heard, and we want to vote towards what we think should be put in place and would be best for the collective of the community, you should be able to have the right to do that. This is not just talking about if you get it or you don't. This is talking about not even having the right to do that and say that or matter. Do y'all understand where I'm coming from when I say that? That is what it's boiling down to. So just silence these people and this group of people because they don't matter. We don't care what they want. We don't want to give it to them anyway. And we only going to listen to this group of people over here because these are the only people we really actually care about. That's how it comes off. Does it come off like that to you, Imani? Before we go to the song break? Oh, your sound. Okay. All right. No problem. So we're going to take the song break real quick. And then she's getting her sound together. And then we'll be right back, y'all.
I look pretty, love no pretty stage. Just a mirror. At one, the deaf pay attention. Check the manifest, they drag us from the coast. Middle passage madness, where we lost the most. Packed in hoes like cargo, spirits in a cage. Built a brand new nation, lived a life of rage. Yeah, we were the property, the 3/5 compromise. Picked the cotton, built the White House with our hands inside. And they watered all the poplar trees with our blood and cries. Yeah, you know what they were for beneath the southern skies. That strange fruit hanging message of their hate. A simple wrong look was enough to seal your fate. To my brown kin, they just stole it, called it manifest. Killed the Aztecs, stole the planes, put them to the west. The good old days, the signs on the wall. They want us broken, silent, waiting for the call. They wanna push us backwards, drag us down to hell, but we ain't going back, not going back. We ain't going back. We ain't going back. We ain't going back. Let's talk about a word. Let's talk about a word. See how it sticks. 6 letters, COLORED to politics. Not a person, just a label, just a shade on a chart. A legal way to tear a whole damn race apart. Colored water fountain, colored waiting room, colored entrance round the back, a social living tomb. Jim Crow was the law, man. Segregation was the tool. Taught a child to hate his own skin before he went to school. And it ain't just here, that's the global view. Apartheid, colonization, yeah, they did it there too. That word was a weapon, a boot on the neck to say you live, you die, you move at our check. They want the good old days, the signs on the wall. They want us broken, silent, waiting for the call. They wanna push us backwards, drag us down to hell, but we ain't going back. 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 Don't you dare say it's repeating. It never stops. They just got new suits, new slogans, new cops. They ban the books that tell the truth of Act 1. They call a protest riot soon as the marching's done. They tell us get over it, it wasn't us. While they build the same systems of them and us. Gerrymander the district, choke the money from the school. Praise the good old days while they fill the modern jails. This is the warning, this is the last thing. We learned your lessons, now we understand. We are the children of the ones you couldn't break. We are the dreams that you could never ever take. We are the fire you tried to douse with ice. We paid the cost, we ain't gon' pay it twice. You want us back in chains, you want us on our knees. We'd rather die right here standing on our feet. This ain't a threat, this is a promise we fulfill. We ain't ever going back. We'll fight you tooth and nail. We ain't going back.
All right, y'all. Thank you so much for rocking with us through that song break. We are back. Are you back, Imani? You got your sound back good, girl?
Yeah, I'm back.
Okay. Cool. You can hear me and I can hear you.
Yep, we sure can.
All right, perfect. So we're good to go. We just got 2 more videos to get through, y'all. We're going to be sliding over now to the next topic, and we'll be listening to another one of our favorite podcasts from the I've Had It podcast over there with Jennifer and Pumps, but sometimes they do a little bit separate stuff. So today will be just Jennifer, and she's going to be having a conversation with Josh Welsh. He'll be joining her to break down the absolute disgrace that the DOJ has become under the Donald Trump administration. And again, when I said earlier, before we went to song break, that it's not just Black people complaining all of the time. It is people in general that are complaining about this administration and how problematic it is, and how a lot of things that they're doing is trying to take not even just a certain race of people back, but all of us back in time and in history. And it's a lot of nasty work. And so if y'all don't want to hear from us, trust me, there's other people talking about it as well that are very level-headed. They understand it and they see it for what it is. and they're going to call it like they see it as well. So we're going to go ahead and get into that video. Let's see where we are. Hold on one second. So we got about 12 minutes on this one, not too long at all. We'll do about 6 minutes commentary break, and then the next 6 minutes, and then we'll move on to our last video for the live, y'all. So let's go ahead and get into this, and we will meet y'all in the chat if you want to chat about these topics as we listen along together.
All right, back by popular demand, it's the one, the only Josh Welch, and we have to talk. Obama is speaking out against Trump's use of the DOJ to go after his political enemies. Let's play the clip.
What powers do you believe the president should not have?
Well, there are a couple that I followed even though they weren't law. And I want us, we're going to have to do some work to return to this basic norm, and we probably now have to codify it. The White House shouldn't be able to direct the Attorney General to go around prosecuting whoever the president wants prosecuted.
Right, because technically it's under the executive branch. Technically, the norm is that it's independent.
The idea is that the Attorney General is the people's lawyer. It's not the president's consigliere.
Josh.
I think he puts his finger right on it up close when you see what the Department of Justice has done to weaponize the rule of law against political opponents of President Trump. It's reminiscent of any sort of authoritarian regime where you see a leader going after his political opponents. We've never seen the Department of Justice used to this extent as a political or police, basically watchdog for the president.
Right. And I believe they always accused the weaponization of the government. They accused Obama of weaponization. They accused Joe Biden of weaponization. And I just want to say, I wish Biden would have weaponized the DOJ. I wish they would have done their fucking job and said, go get these fascists that tried to overturn the election results.
And that's what all of the MAGA crowd says. Well, look at what Biden or look at what Garland did.
They didn't do jack shit.
Exactly. And let's not skip past the fact that President Trump is an actual criminal. He was convicted in a state court, not a federal court. He was convicted in a state court of 30-something counts. Didn't have anything to do with Merrick Garland, with what happened to President Trump.
Well, and speaking of those 34 felonies that he was convicted of, an attorney took 34 L's, and that guy's name is Todd Blanche. The loser who got Trump convicted of 34 felonies is now the acting attorney general of the DOJ. And he has responded to former President Obama. Play the clip.
That myself or President Trump or lawyers who work with me are being accused of some sort of political retribution. It is simply not true. It is absolutely not true. And how do I prove it's not true? Well, if you look at the recent indictment you asked me about a few minutes ago, you have local prosecutors, you have local agents. I don't even know their names. I don't know their names, who are bringing these charges. Okay, that's one way. And the next thing I'll say is it is extraordinarily hypocritical and extraordinarily rich for these critics, as you call them, to focus on what this administration is doing when almost to a person, they remained dead silent for 4 years while we saw what happened during the Biden administration with President Trump. I mean,
okay. He's referencing, Josh, this indictment of James Comey for doing it seashells that say 8647. And he's saying that Trump didn't direct him to pursue the investigation because he doesn't know the particular agent's names. This is just, he's sitting there talking about something being rich, and this is just more than I can take.
Let me give you a little bit of context as a criminal defense lawyer. Anytime you hear a criminal defense lawyer use words like Todd Blanche just used, simply false, just not true. When they give this quote about their client, then that means that they're 100% guilty. Those are the kind of things that you say when you have nothing else to say. You say, and I quote him here, that is simply not true. That is just not true. That's simply false. He said all of those things in that clip. You say those things from where I'm sitting when your client is guilty as fuck.
Okay. The same day that Blanche gave this interview, the DOJ made this announcement. Pop this up. Per Bloomberg, the U.S. Justice Department will ask the Supreme Court to let it intervene in President Donald Trump's appeal of the $83.3 million jury verdict against him in a defamation suit brought by former Elle magazine advice columnist E. Jean Carroll. The DOJ filed to ask the Supreme Court to allow it to step in on Trump's appeal, using the Westfall Act to swap Trump for the United States government as the defendant in the lawsuit, a move that would doom Carroll's case entirely because the federal government cannot be sued for defamation. Dumb this down in layman terms for me and the listener so we understand what Trump is doing with the DOJ and how he is in fact weaponizing it.
Well, so to begin with, the Second Circuit has already decided this issue, and they decided against Trump, and this was during Biden's administration. And just recently, DOJ requested an en banc hearing. That's where you get all of the judges to rule on this. I think there's 8 or 9 circuit judges, and all of them would collectively hear this and rule. And typically, you only see that if it's a very important issue and the court decides upon a request to actually do that. Here, DOJ did that, and the Second Circuit refused the en banc decision or to sit en banc and listen to this and give them a second shot at it. So what you see here now is they're going to go past the Second Circuit, and where are they going to go? They're going to go to our good friends at the Supreme Court, and what are they going to ask for? They're going to ask for Donald Trump's name to be substituted with the United States, because under the Federal Tort Claims Act, you cannot sue the United States for defamation, period. So it's a kill shot. If you make the substitution, then the judgment is null and void. The government doesn't have to pay. So let's see what the good folks at the Supreme Court have to say about this once it gets there.
I think we all know.
All right, so we'll stop it right there. Imani, I'll go ahead and let you take the charge on this one. So from what we've heard so far with this commentary, which I think is excellent, it gives a lot of legal background as well. Child, it's a lot we heard in just a short period of time. What are some of your thoughts on this?
Right. Well, love to hear from Obama any time. I mean, Obama's words that he's talking about the normal practice. Trump's world is using the DOJ for revenge. And it's not meant to be. It's like it's a cross between he's behaving like a mafia don versus an authoritarian. It's that he thinks they're his personal lawyers. And the thing that Todd Blanche forgets is when you go into a court in the US, it's we the people. It's the people, not we the president. It's we the people. They work for the people of the United States. And he seems to have forgotten that. And that's why he's not fit to hold the role that he's holding. And if you want to talk about DEI, yeah, you lose a case where someone gets 34 felonies. Yeah, that's what I call an appointment of DEI. You didn't earn it. You didn't earn it, and you're showing that you didn't earn it. And the fact is, you know, like they said, Biden didn't weaponize the DOJ. He barely touched the holster. He didn't do anything, because if they had moved faster with their prosecutions, if they had gotten Jack Smith in earlier, I don't think any of this would be happening to this day. And he wasn't convicted by the DOJ. He was convicted in a state court. The second thing is his defamation case is a private thing. It was not something he did when he was in government. So why the hell should the government now saying that the federal government's got a defamation case of something he did in the 1980s? It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous that it's even a possibility that they would stand in the place of something he did as a private citizen. And I more than this, I can go on, because like the man said, when Todd Blanche says this is simply not true, for me, the guy said it means I got nothing to say. I personally think it means we're cooked and we haven't got an answer. We haven't got an answer. And if you're saying I don't know the agent's name, you definitely don't have an offense. If that's the most you can say, why would you know the agent's names anyway? I mean, it really is disgusting that they would swap themselves in to a personal defamation case and a case where he was convicted under New York state law of SA. This is how low they have sunk. Remember, E. Jean Carroll sued him for SA in a civil lawsuit. So the DOJ now basically are predator protectors. They're saying it. They're saying it. They're saying it. And then on top of that, what do? Well, if they don't get the answer they want from the lower courts, they go shopping for their Supreme Court, because they think they've got a big chance. But really, this is going to put the Supreme Court on blast if they intervene in a civil lawsuit for SA. Remember, he was convicted of SA, of E. Jean Carroll. Make that make sense.
It makes no entire sense. However, it's just like this is something that we are seeing on multiple spaces. You know what I mean? Like we seeing that this is happening as high as the government level, right? And people in some type or shape of form of power, they can just sweep things under the rug, pay people off, and make them go away, right? So we're seeing this happening even in our government space, but we also see the similarities as far as it being mirrored when it even comes to this platform, right? It's like the wrongdoers go free, and they weaponize whatever it is that they have on their side, their leverage, their money, all of those things, their relationships to get themselves free. The people are screaming to the top of their lungs that this is not right. They're trying to shine the light on what is wrong. And there's nothing that comes from it. It's like you're just like beating at a dead horse, which we shouldn't be, because these things are way too serious, right? For it not to be taken to the proper authorities. But who are those authorities these days, right? If the whole game is rigged, who do you go to for help? Who do you go to get the proper resolve? Like everybody that's in position is someone who's in on the game, and they're all playing these nasty word games. So it's really kind of sad and pitiful to watch, because I watch it and I just see the mirror of it all. I do.
But
and
I still believe that I don't always believe the wrongdoers will get away with it. And we have seen a little bit of wrongdoing being checked. And I believe it will go on. But people need to wake up. People need to wake up and look at what's happening. People need to wake up and realize that, this is not just about Trump. This is about power, lawlessness. and
People wake up
basically
and fight.
norms just being eradicated. But anyway, that's all.
Wake up, fight, wake up, speak up, wake up, learn up, wake up, knowledge up, all of the ups. Like, how much more of this are we going to go through before we start putting in the work that we need to put in as the people? We need to know, like, this is not right. We need to have the courage to speak up and say, this is not right. And we need to do the research and, educate ourselves to understand fully how this thing is moving and shaking. And it's moving and shaking in the wrong direction. It is rigged. It's been rigged from jump. And that's what we're dealing with. We're not dealing with regular no more. This is irregular. And to deal with irregular things, sometimes it takes irregular responses and energy. So, you can't just sit
Anyway,
there and on the pillow and be like, oh, everything's going to be okay. I understand having
no,
faith. Don't get it twisted. I have that. But to just think and see what you're seeing every day on a day-to-day basis when it comes to this, that you think that is going to get better, every day it gets worse. So what do we do about it?
it's got to get worse before it gets better. But we'll listen to the other half of the video and see what other BS is going on.
Yeah, let's get back into it. Okay, meet you in the chat. All right, y'all, hold on one second. Let me get this back up here. They kicked that out. Hold on. Give me just a sec. Get everything set up. Okay. All right, here we go.
And you say this a lot, and if you'll explain it to the listener, that from a criminal defense lawyer that works with, federal attorneys in the DOJ, what you see this administration doing is taking the rule of law, which basically stabilizes democracy, business, the economy, everything, and he's turning it upside down.
Upside down. And I think the Department of Justice at one point had close to a 90% conviction rate because their lawyers are smart. They prepare for those cases. They don't file cases that they can't prove. And that number has dipped significantly in the past 18 months with the quality of lawyers. I think some guy was putting ads out on Twitter seeking new U.S. attorneys. If interested, apply, send me a DM. I mean, when you hear shit like that and you think about the Department
You don't think
of
Lindsay
Justice,
Halligan is the nation's best?
that insurance lawyer that went down to Virginia? No, I don't think she's probably, but that's what we're dealing with now.
All right. And the DOJ dropped charges in cases against a Republican in Congress. Let's pop this up. Kyle Chaney reports DOJ appears to be abandoning whatever remained of a review of material seized from Representative Andy Ogle's phone. The case froze soon after Trump took office, and initial prosecutors on the case withdrew. Ogles was being investigated for fabricating a $320,000 loan to his own campaign. The Trump DOJ just destroyed the evidence before investigators could even look at it. Ogles also raised nearly $25,000 in donations for a children's burial garden in memory of his stillborn child, a garden that was never built. That's pretty breathtaking. And he has refused to say what happened to the money. So not only is this guy a con man and a grifter, his stillborn baby he used, my God, it's perfect for MAGA.
Perfect. And I think the part that catches me here is that they dismiss this. They end this inquiry before the FBI ever has a chance to even see what's on the phone. That's what this was about. They had seized his cell phone. And they're investigating him for campaign finance violations. And they don't even get that far. They don't even care. We don't even care what's on it. We don't care if this guy did it or not. He's MAGA. He's one of us. Let's get rid of it. That's the kind of shit that we're dealing with day in, day out with MAGA.
All right, that's all we have. Thank you, Josh. Drop Josh a comment in the comment section. Subscribe to our channel or pre-order my book.
All right, so I am back. I don't know if you guys can hear me, but there were some technical difficulties happening. So I'm probably gonna go ahead and just end the live out after this. I don't know, something weird is going on with StreamYard, but we listened to a lot of great topics today. We did have one more that I wanted to get into when it comes to Clarence Thomas. And we'll get into that because we have multiple days that we do our politics and stuff. So we can just hinge that one on to, the next video for the next day. But we've gone over a bit in time. We're at almost the 3-hour mark. So I'm going to go ahead and finish that out. Imani, hey. So I know StreamYard is acting crazy. So I don't know why it booted my video out. It booted you out. And all for the panel. I don't know. Something's going on weird, Imani. So let me see if I can drop the link if you want to come back up again, or if you still have it. You can try to hit it again if you want to close out with me. Or if not, I can just close it out. And so you got trouble getting back in. Yeah, something is going on with StreamYard. I don't know what's going on, but I don't know. I'm gonna see if I can fix it. I'm gonna reset everything or whatnot. And I'll see if I can fix all of these issues and stuff. I don't know if it's a me thing or a StreamYard thing. Usually I'm doing everything the same, so I don't know why. I guess it's just acting up today. But yeah. So, and some final thoughts, y'all, for the live. And it's unfortunate because I know Imani has some good final thoughts as well, but this StreamYard is acting stupid. But as we close out, I just want us to all look at the big picture here, okay? We aren't just looking at a series of random headlines when it comes to these things. We're looking at a battle for the blueprint of our future. When we talk about the rise of Confederacy in Alabama and across the South, we're talking about a move to delete our voices from the map of this country. When we see Obama breaking his silence because the DOJ is being used as a shield for the powerful and a sword against truth, we're seeing the rule of law being replaced by the rule of mob. And even as we face biological threats like the Andes Hantavirus landing in Atlanta and in Omaha, we have to ask ourselves, who can we trust to protect us when the institutions meant to guard our health and our votes are being dismantled for political gain? So from the shuffling of maps in Alabama to the billionaire-funded populism of Nigel Farage in the UK across the pond, the message is clear. They are betting that we are too tired, too distracted, or too scared to notice the ground shifting beneath our feet. They want us to believe that we're headed back to 1865, but they forget one thing. We know our history and we know our power. So I encourage you all to stay vigilant about your health, stay loud about your rights, and never let them gerrymander your spirit. They can draw whatever lines they want on a map. They can't draw a line around the truth. So I'm so sorry that Imani could not close out with me, y'all. StreamYard's acting dumb. It has been for the past 2 days. But yeah, this is your girl, Golden Queen. And thank you so much, Imani, for joining me today on this live and with this commentary. And we will be back together co-hosting for much, much more, all different topics, because we do it all and talk about it all over here. This is our kingdom. We will stand tall. We will stay informed. And I will see you guys on the next one. Per usual, I'm going to end us with a bop. And we will talk to you guys on the next live. And shout out to B-Love. Thank you, B-Love, for coming in and joining us and listening. You always listen to the end because you always leave a nice, sweet message right when we're ending. So I know you listen to it all the way to the end. And I appreciate that. I appreciate the support. I hope y'all enjoyed and you were informed a little bit. But y'all, we will fight back. All right, that's all I got on this one, y'all. Let's play a little tune and I'll see you on the next live. Golden out. Bye.
They said stay distracted, stay divided, stay tired. But people waking up now. Yeah, something's shifting. Rise up. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. They can't silence the people no more. Too much pain been buried before. Every headline opening wounds. Still we rise, still we move. Hands up high, let the truth be known. Too many hearts turn cold and stone, but the fight for tomorrow lives on, and the people singing strong. Rise up, keep pushing. We still here. We still here. Yeah, yeah. Every week another story hit the timeline. Another power play hidden in the fine lines. Everybody screaming, nobody hearing truth. Young souls losing faith in the booth. They politic pain while the cameras flash. Turn communities into hashtags. Everybody divided by design. Keep us fighting while they redraw lines. Yeah. Too much noise, too much smoke in the air. Too many leaders acting like they care. But the people see the cracks now. So We stop now, who gon' stand? Who gon' fight for the next generation? They can't silence the people no more. Too much pain been buried before. Every headline opening wounds. Still we rise, still we move. Hands up high, let the truth be known. Too many hearts turn cold as stone. But the fight for tomorrow lives on. And the people singing. Truth hit harder when the lies get exposed. Whole system cracking under pressure and code. Everybody angry, everybody online. But rage alone won't heal the mind. We need wisdom with the passion too. Can't become the thing we accusing them to do. Mirror conversations hurt the soul sometimes. But accountability the hardest climb. See the cycle repeat every year. Fear yourself faster than whole ground here. But I still believe in people waking up. Even when the road get rough. Wake up, stay sharp, hold the line. This ain't left or right. This ain't left or right. It's about truth or lies. This about people trying to survive. No fear, no fear, no fear. We still standing, still speaking, still fighting for tomorrow. Can't silence the people no more. We done see what the silence for. Every storm made us stronger now. Shall we hear? Do we hear and we louder now? Hands up high, let the whole world know. Truth gon' live when the lights get low. And the fight for tomorrow lives on. So the people keep singing strong. Stand tall, we still here. The people won't fall. History watch. What side you gon' stand on?